In a beautiful city with tall buildings and vast grasslands, it is a real world where players have the freedom to play online games. In the middle of a dark forest, there is a group of players sitting relaxed around a campfire warming their bodies. But behind it all, there is a spark of romance that can be seen. A player was seen wearing a brown robe blowing in the wind and in his hand holding a shiny sword, looking at the entrance gate and remembering the beautiful civilization in front of him. But what happened is a different reality. A group of virtual fantasy games with various characters with their characteristics is called Chrono Life. The story starts with a player who was very angry and annoyed with another player because he was not accepted to join the game because he felt he was still new and would cause trouble to his fellow players. That player swore and raised his middle finger at the other players who refused him. You can see a little boy in a hat asking him to upgrade his equipment to the new 11th so he can join them. Amid a crowd of people passing by looking for his game partner, he just stood still like a statue that hadn't moved for thousands of years. In his heart, he cursed with annoyance at people why they didn't choose him to join their team, and that was very annoying for him. The man shouted with a very annoyed face and tears in his eyes, holding back tears about the game he was playing, which was rubbish, even though he had a good sword to defeat his enemies. The people around were talking about him, and thought he was shouting like that because they didn't let him join their hunting party. The girl in the purple hat was slightly confused by his behavior. The man didn't care about people who saw him while crying. He still shouted to express his annoyance because he had spent a lot of money to buy a sword and thought he would be able to join them. From a distance, a young woman with orange hair could be seen with a stick that glowed purple in her hand, looking at all the curses and annoyance she was making. The woman greeted him by saying, "Excuse me." He was immediately shocked and tried to cover up his embarrassment, but the red color on his cheeks was still visible, and he was confused about who the woman in front of him was at the moment. The woman with a charming face asked players to join the hunt at the party and play together with the woman as teammates. The player didn't seem to expect it. His face suddenly filled with tears-flushed cheeks, and a big smile when the woman asked him to become a gaming teammate. One morning in the middle of a sunny forest, player invited an orange-haired woman to chat. He told her about his prowess in playing games, and the woman praised him with a look of charm. Through playing games, he can get pocket money, and he has spent this pocket money to buy a sword which he thinks is the greatest sword. The woman heard the man's words. The woman was very amazed and very enthusiastic about knowing how long it would take to get good results like him. The player will tell the woman that he has bought 55,001 beginner packages and even a knight's double-edged sword from a package. The woman was very impressed with the player's achievements, looking like a hero from a fairy tale. He imagined that one day he could date this woman with full love and happiness. After dating, he wanted to propose to the woman with a romantic bunch of flowers on the beach, with the natural beauty around it. Continued marriage, and had a beautiful daughter with a face similar to that woman's. She was very happy with a teary face at the thought of her child growing up healthily and thinking about what name to name her child. Instantly his reverie disappeared when the woman shouted, "It was here!" But he was confused. This was still in the middle of the forest. Suddenly the woman attacked the player and he fell with a pale and confused face. He was confused by everything that was happening. He thought that the woman attacked because she wanted the weapon. But the woman laughed in a cheerful tone that she didn't need that stupid trash weapon. The woman lured him into the middle of an empty forest because she wanted to kill the player. The woman lying to him about joining a hunting party with him was just a lie, and the woman taunted him that the player was just a loser. The woman boasted and stepped on the self-esteem of the player, who felt that he was a loser from real life and wouldn't even be able to talk in real life. Women want players to immediately get more changes and try enhanced equipment, because if they can't rely on it, their equipment will be forfeited. The player with blood on his mouth felt very annoyed and angry with the woman who had lied to him. The woman with a sharp gaze intimidated him that his parents must be beggars seeing how he bought the beginner warrior set. Sick of words from women. She then shouted that was enough because the orange-haired woman had gone too far. The player's face was very serious, full of annoyance and red eyes as if he wanted to kill the woman. Suddenly, when he attacked, the orange-haired woman slashed him until he fell to the ground. Suddenly, the system appears with a sign that the conditions have been met and the hidden class transition has begun. The woman turned into a goddess with wings that seemed to fly high and black hair full of elegance. That's when the system indicates that the job change has been completed. The woman finally reached 1,000 people. Then the woman stretched her body to relieve her fatigue and still thought about the final quest remaining. He got the truth about this game that people follow the law of the jungle, and the character spawn system is dead. The next day, in a beautiful place full of birds singing and people gathering, the system spawns players with a blue light covering them, and your character spawn system has been revived. The player remembers all the painful events the other day, and the player ponders a lot about it. The more he remembers, the more the player wants to get angry, and he tries the power of the reinforcing hammer to increase the value of the equipment enhancement by 1 by hitting the floor, which makes the floor bang, and you can see the light behind it. The system appears notifying that it has failed to change equipment with a sword that is split in half. The player tries again by using iron gloves and using his strength as well as possible. But again, the glove equipment has been destroyed. He sat silently and pensively, while shedding tears, feeling like he had lost everything and thought this game was bad. Suddenly, a wooden stick fell from near the player. The wooden stick was a basic weapon for beginners and had very weak power. A boy with very short hair came to greet him. He thought that the wooden stick came from the little boy. The player felt that the newbie was taking pity on him because all his equipment was damaged and he only had underwear left. Players are curious about the wooden stick and try to hit it. But what happened was that the wooden stick radiated light and turned into a purple wooden stick. The system appears and displays that the upgrade was successful. Players feel that they have achieved success only with trash items like this. Players try to hit the wooden stick many times, and the system informs them that if they are successful, the points will increase. It doesn't feel like it's already evening. He kept hitting the wooden stick with a hammer until his face was covered in sweat. How surprised the player was when suddenly the system provided information that the player had achieved maximum enhancement in an item. He was confused about whether to feel happy or annoyed as to why plus 99 was only on wooden sticks, and he felt it didn't make sense. After enhancement 10 times, the probability of another success is less than 5%. He tried using a wooden stick, and to the player's surprise, it turned out that the wooden stick could provide extraordinary strength and explosions so that its power could penetrate other continents. Seeing the explosion, the people in the village felt scared and felt that he was in danger and needed to immediately save the person. People are still confused by the chaos that was created by him. Some think it was because of the fire that was spit out by the dragon. How shocked he was to see the effect of the power of his wooden stick, that even continents could split apart, seeing that he was just speechless. On this day, the Guinness record is recorded in the history of VR games. Someone died, because the game and its notoriety have increased. From a total of 850,617 players, he finally has an increased notoriety. He feels very satisfied and proud of his achievements, and remembers what people said before he became like this, and will teach a lesson for all the crimes people have done to him. The man is a person who in real life is a nobody, and has an ordinary appearance and height. He excels in academics and sports. If explained in the game tier, he could probably enter Bronze 4. The next day he entered the city barefoot with a black robe to cover his body and the white underwear he always wore. He accidentally bumped into the burly bald man in front of him. The bald man was angry and lifted the player's black robe with force. The bald man reprimanded him for walking without looking ahead and shouted at the player that he should just die because he was just a stupid newbie. The petite girl behind the bald man calmed the bald man to be patient and not scare him. He was a little annoyed and cursed at the bald man. The bald man was very angry, as if he wanted to beat the player. However, the player hit the bald man with a wooden stick on the right side of his head. After he hit the bald man, there was a huge explosion that shocked all the townspeople. The tiny girl behind the bald man was shocked to see what was happening in front of her. Suddenly the system appears and there is a warning that your weapon's durability has decreased and the weapon cannot be repaired. Seeing that, he was very shocked and what to do. The next day he sat in silence looking at the damaged wood and was confused about how to repair it because it was the only weapon he had. The wooden stick weapon is very weak and is a basic weapon for beginners and will be destroyed after a few hits, and once damaged, the weapon cannot be repaired. Seeing that he was very angry because he only used it twice, and only had 3 out of 6 durability remaining, he looked up at the sky and felt cheated by momentary pleasure. Once again he remembered the revenge he would take, but with this incident, he was confused about where to start. He still has 3 strokes remaining. He came to a valley of death filled with human skulls along the way. He stepped on the skull until it made a crunching sound. But before he reached the valley of death, suddenly there was a very strong gust of wind that made him feel goosebumps. From a distance, a very sharp purple eyeshadow appeared and dark black around it. It turned out to be a monster, with tall horns and large flapping wings with sharp claws, as if it wanted to grab its prey. This monster is the strongest monster from the chief monster named Urus, which is the incarnation of a 2-headed dragon. Urus is very angry with his mouth wide open, showing sharp fangs and sharp eyes, reminding the player that he has crossed the threshold of death. The Valley of Death is a place where life and death intersect. When Urus reminded him about the struggle with a sudden decision, the player immediately used the power of a wooden stick to kill Urus. Instantly, Urus became weak and lay helpless in the Valley of Death. The player's wooden stick still has 2 strokes remaining. Players feel that they will catch the strongest monster in this game by relying on their wooden stick. The Urus monster, with 1 head, then got up again to remind something. Monsters are confused about who the player is. The player, however, does not explain who he is and asks Urus to stop bothering him or Urus will be killed. The player swung his staff again and killed one of the Urus heads, and to the player's surprise, he remembered that there was only 1 hit left. Manage with a sprawling position while still being kind and helping players deal with durability problems. Suddenly, the system appears displaying the main contract of the 2-headed dragon, Urus. The strongest dragon, Urus, wants his soul to him. He is confused to accept this or not. Urus, the 2-headed dragon, explained about the ego sword to him in a simple sentence that Urus, the 2-headed dragon, would fill his weapon with his soul. The weapon will have an ego and evolve into an ego sword and also have unlimited durability. The ego sword is the strongest weapon in Chrono Life. Hearing all the explanations from the dragon player immediately burst out laughing. But Urus, the 2-headed dragon, was confused as to why the player was laughing and asked the player to like his suggestion. He then agreed to a request from Urus, the 2-headed dragon, and they made a contract. After he pressed the agreement with the contract, the system suddenly appeared a purple light that surrounded him. Little by little, Urus's body disappeared, and Urus's soul entered his weapon. All feelings of revenge were increasingly visible after Urus's soul entered the wooden stick. He is very eager to take revenge on those who have hurt him. The next day, in a magnificent palace, people gathered to see the fugitive whose poster had been pasted on the wall. People are confused about what is happening right now. The palace guard informs that the National Bounty Guard SSS has been released, and it is the worst PK ever known. Poster players are distributed in 12 kingdoms on 3 continents around the world. The kingdom gave a gift of 1 billion gold, and it made the citizens very surprised. Then came a group of royal soldiers, in very shiny armor with the symbol of a 2-headed dragon on their chest. At the forefront of the royal army's line was a woman in brown robes, who was the guildmaster of the Holy Guild, Saintry. On the other side also came a troop with red robes, namely crimson robes, with their faces covered with sacks, with no white crosses on the front. The troop was led by Suho, who was included in the 10 elite and strongest knights. On the other hand, there is also the strongest magician in the royal family and the Hollyland Guild in the form of a purple-haired woman with a purple robe and a magic wand in her hand. On the other hand, there is also the guildmaster of the Robin Hood Guild, namely Hong, who is a night robber in a white robe with a mask to cover his face. Soldiers with armor and a flag symbol in the form of a winged shield are the troops of King Arden, who is the guildmaster of the Justice Guild, Hawkeye. The world's top 5 guilds gathered in one place. As the leader of the world's unified guilds, it will declare war. He looked at the wooden stick while laughing, remembering all the revenge they would do. Take care of the 2-headed dragon, calling him Hyungnim to get closer. Suddenly, from the direction of the wooden stick, Urus's head appeared and taunted Hyungnim that his heart was good. Hyungnim was surprised to see a head suddenly come out of the stick and was still confused about whose head this was. Urus provided information that only he could see and hear. Hyungnim was confused as to why only one head appeared on the stick and where were the other heads. Urus was confused and realized that he only had one head and no other heads. The wind started blowing hard and blowing the paper away, and he found it. How shocked he was when he saw that the paper blown by the wind had the face of a royal fugitive on it. By eating meat, he doesn't care about it because he thinks the I character can use words like real money and it's not a violation of the I use words that are not from this world and he doesn't care because he's dead. He was silent for a moment while looking at the poster that had fallen on the ground and thinking about the idea he would make, and felt that his idea didn't feel bad because it would be as if he were a celebrity. Seeing this chaos, he wanted to be LHS. LHS is a loser hiding his strength. While he was having fun chatting with Urus, suddenly an arrow shot from behind, piercing his body. He was covered in blood and lying on the ground. It turned out that the one who shot the arrow was Hawkeye, the Supreme Commander. The Urus were very worried about him, and the humans might be weak, but things would be different if they all attacked together. After being encouraged by Urus, he was able to stand up while covered in blood. The soldier was surprised that he could stand and pull out the arrow. Hawkeye uses a summoning crystal that can be used once for 10 million gold. He then used his wooden stick and created a fairly large explosion, but no matter how strong the monster boss called Urus was, he couldn't beat thousands of people at once. The World Union Guild is not an easy opponent. It was a guild that contained rankers from all corners of the world. The troops led by Suho attacked the He with swords with red pearls, and the female magician troops also attacked using disintegrate magic. The female mage used a ball with magic in it, and there was a huge explosion afterward. He threw his wooden stick, and an even more terrible explosion occurred. All the troops were blown away. The fight this time is like 1 versus 3 million. Thanks to the wooden stick filled with Urus, the two-headed dragon, none of this can happen. Only King Arden remained from all the troops that attacked him. However, he did not kill King Arden together with the explosion. However, King Arden was hit by him independently because King Arden had shot Hyungnim. This incident caused a stir among Chrono Life users, but also went viral among other game users, and even people who were not interested in playing games. He looked for Urus, and found that it was still attached to the wooden stick, and Saru was very proud of what he had done. He heard a woman's footsteps in high heels, and he turned to see her. The man was surprised because there was still one alive, and that made him annoyed. But unexpectedly, what came was a beautiful woman with long hair and white clothes and a shining wand in her hand. This made him very upset because this was the woman who used to mock him as a loser. The vast plain at sunset is decorated with the corpses of 3 million people, with countless swords and spears strewn across the ground. He met again with the person he hated, but when he met him he couldn't do anything but laugh. The beautiful woman greeted him and asked how he was. Fate brings him and a beautiful woman to meet again. He realized that this was not fate, but that he already knew that someone terrible would be looking for him. That woman always invites Hyungnim to chat, even though in her heart she wants to hit him directly on the head. He gave a crap to the beautiful woman about her new hair having changed color, and the beautiful woman was happy that Hyungnim noticed it. It turns out that at that time the beautiful woman aimed to kill him to change her job and become a hidden job, and because of that, her hair color changed. The man was annoyed because a beautiful woman's job had changed to the good lady of life after killing 1,000 people, and it didn't seem like a good lady of death. Then the beautiful woman teased him that the story must be funny. Hearing the explanation from the beautiful woman, he became angry and wanted to kill the woman. He waved his sick wooden stick, but the beautiful woman wanted to have a long talk with him, and this made him feel even more irritated. Punches continued to be aimed at the beautiful woman, and the explosions were getting more and more, and he felt that everything was done. But it turns out the woman is still alive. He stood in the middle of the smoke after the explosion he had created. The lady taunts him that his strength is already very strong, but he cannot kill him with such weak attacks. Urus saw that the woman was still alive in shock and clutched her face in fear. He was surprised by the woman because he thought the attack had hit the woman, but why was the woman not even scratched? The beautiful woman introduced herself that she was the goods of life, and she was not an ordinary human and could kill gods. Once again he was annoyed by the beautiful woman's words. He attacked the woman again with his wooden stick while jumping towards the beautiful woman. The fight between him and the beautiful woman made the entire land shake, and if it continued like this, the land might be destroyed without a trace. The beautiful woman then showed her power, which made the beautiful woman's wings glow and shine very brightly. The beautiful woman criticized that no matter how strong she would not be able to kill him. Hearing the beautiful woman's words, he smiled with an annoyed look and walked away, ignoring the beautiful woman. He went about trying to find out how hard he could swing a wooden stick to split 2 continents. The beautiful woman taunts him to just give up and never be able to kill him. He realized that he could just rely on the planet to destroy the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman realized that if she destroyed the planet, she would be thrown into the sky by the explosion or thrown into outer space. But the beautiful woman still had doubts because she was just an ordinary human being. But he remains adamant about destroying the planet with his best strength. By destroying this planet, everyone will die, and it will be like a suicide bomb compared to revenge. He roared with laughter and was about to hit the earth with a wooden stick. The terrible explosion was inevitable. Suddenly he woke up and realized that he was out of Chrono Life. 2 teenagers were seen playing games and were annoyed because they had not yet gotten bored of the game. The 2 teenagers approached the owner of the VR capsule shop and expressed their complaints because the internet was down. The owner of the VR capsule shop reassured gamers that it wasn't because the breaker or the capsule was turned off. It could be that the Chrono Life server was having problems. Suddenly a young man received an announcement message from the Chrono Life homepage containing an apology that the server was starting emergency maintenance, and that another announcement would be posted when the server could be used. The woman reading the announcement felt sad because the server was having problems. Suddenly the system brought him back to another world filled with numbers and blue light. Suddenly someone came talking about ST-389. The person in shorts and yellow sandals said that planet Saint 389 was a planet known for its beauty in the 4 universe, but had been destroyed by Li Jiwu. ST-389 is the favorite place of the mother of the person in the short and yellow sandals. He was confused as to why someone suddenly came into the room. Someone in shorts reminded him of a woman with black hair. He was even more confused because in the system the current number of users was only 1 person, but what happened was that there were only 2 people left. He realized that he had killed everyone, and with that revenge was achieved. He felt very happy. He summoned Urus to come out of the stick as revenge had worked. But what happened was that Urus didn't get out of the stick. There were only 2 people in the game, namely him and the yellow-haired person. He was getting confused and he guessed if he was an NPC or an administrator. This yellow-haired person introduced himself as Crackle, but suddenly Crackle had urgent business, so he sent greetings to Furry. The situation is back outside the game. A young boy who was playing a game suddenly got angry because of the arrival of someone who disturbed him. A man with glasses and a cigarette in his mouth gave information that his name was Li Jiwu, 21 years old. Students usually like to play Chrono Life and have been playing Chrono Life for 3 months, and their choice of weapon is Woodstick plus 99. Li Jiwu is still a beginner player, but with luck, he got a Woodstick plus 99, and can beat up people he doesn't like, including the strange woman he once met. Instantly, Li Jiwu was confused by the person who knew his identity. That person is Furry, who is about to steal his wand. In real life, it looks like a magnificent building with bright lights, and the moon adds a luxurious atmosphere. Li Jiwu was invited to have dinner with Furry at a restaurant under heavy guard. Furry told Li Jiwu to eat, and don't look at him, he kept on, and the old woman who runs the shop had great cooking talent. Li Jiwu was a little worried about Furry. Furry explained that this was a gukbop restaurant that he often visited when he was still broke. The company was founded during the initial development stages of Chrono Life for 15 years. Hearing those words made Li Jiwu feel that all of this was impossible. Furry is the president of Chrono Life, Choi Deokbai. Li Jiwu was surprised because behind him was Li Jiwu's guard who thought he was previously a gangster. However, it turns out that the person who was thought to be a bodyguard was a Furry employee with the position of character modeler, sound planning director, and marketing team leader. Li Jiwu had an annoyed face and wondered why he was afraid if he wasn't a gangster, and he was confused about why President Crowley came looking for him. President Choli said that if he came back, he would take his wooden stick, and this surprised Lee Ji-woo. As a game company, this is a normal thing to do just to pick up bugs. Lee Ji-woo was shocked again about the item bug, because the item that I enhanced by 3% was the official probability of success after strengthening an item 10 times. Of course, beyond that, the probability will continue to decrease. However, if it is not a bug, then what is the percentage to break through, so that the wooden stick will be managed by the president? Returning to the gameplay, in front of a beautiful city, a short-horned monster appears with sharp eyes and a smoking mouth. The monster is called Gorus at level 21. All players are ready to kill this monster with their respective skills and weapons. A girl in a red robe attacks the monster with the power of a sword that can emit a bright red light and throws a powerful fireball at the monster. The fireball burned the mustard until it was powerless. A man asked a woman in a red robe to attack again, but what happened was that the woman in a red robe attacked the monster towards its horns alone. The monster headbutted the red-robed woman so hard that she was thrown far away. The monsters, getting fiercer and more powerful, approached the players, and the woman who was attacking alone had fainted. Lee Ji-woo saw this very bored, and took a deep breath and thought about what to do now. Suddenly a voice came from behind like Urus's voice. Then Lee Ji-woo grabbed his wooden stick and looked at it, remembering Urus, who always accompanied him on his days and adventures. Back at the dinner table with the president and Lee Ji-woo, he emphasized that from now on, the president would take care of his plus 99 wood stick. The president said that Lee Ji-woo's wooden stick was not a bug item, so it could be concluded that he would not bother the user again. Even though Lee Ji-woo had killed the strongest boss monster, killed 3 million people, or destroyed a plane, the president freed Lee Ji-woo to do anything as a user. Whether Lee Ji-woo added Kogdugi to the Gukbop or not was up to Lee Ji-woo. Suddenly an old woman came from behind and hit the president on the head if he didn't put some Kadugi in the Gukbop. The old woman grumbled that the president was going to drive her crazy, and what was the point of making beef bone soup all night and putting Kakdugi soup on the menu as a consideration for the president? Moving places in the game world. Lee Ji-woo was still looking at her wooden stick and thinking about Kogdugi soup. While contemplating, Lee Ji-woo saw a fight between players who had the wrong monster attack technique. A man was heard shouting at a pink-haired player named Love. The man scolds him for not knowing that maintaining position is basic when hunting parties. But Love acts like a patroller, and they have to hunt better. Returning to the world of reality, the president explained that Chrono Life is a pretty good game in which there are elements of freedom, romance, and travel, and it is a fantasy world that is bigger than anyone can imagine. The president asked Lee Ji-woo to refrain from destroying it
and just enjoy it. Remembering the president's words about Chrono Life, you have to enjoy Chrono Life well. Lee Ji-woo is more enthusiastic and will enjoy it in his way. Like how he wants thick Kogdugi soup, so he has to put a lot in it. When he wanted to try his strength, Lee Ji-woo heard Love cursing and talking about trash games. Love was annoyed that people didn't have an eye for items and expressed the opinion that the weapon was very good, and Love had spent his money to buy this sword. Seeing Love swear like that made Lee Ji-woo remember the first time he entered the world of gaming. Love cried and complained that he didn't need them, and Love wouldn't join any party when hunting and would choose to hunt alone. Seeing all these incidents, Lee Ji-woo didn't know what to think about right now. Suddenly there was a creaking sound behind him. How surprised Love was to see the mustard right in front of his eyes in very large quantities. Love stood still, motionless, with a body that was increasingly pale because he didn't know where to start. There were thousands of monsters, and they opened their mouths very wide, as if they wanted to eat Love. Love was so afraid, and had resigned herself to the situation, that she closed her eyes. Lee Ji-woo, wearing a black robe covering her body and white underwear, ran to face the monster and protect Love. Lee Ji-woo, using his wooden stick, attacked the monster and made an explosion visible in outer space which killed the monster. Love fearfully tried to open her eyes, and to her surprise,
there was a young man with a wooden stick who had protected her from the monsters. Lee Ji-woo asked Love to join him at the hunting party, but Love refused. Everyone was seen looking at their cell phones with serious faces, and some felt tense. They saw an issue that attracted the world's attention, and people called this day the end of the world. There has been an endless debate in the global gaming community. First about the massacre of 800,000 people. The second was the surveillance of 3 million people, and they were confused about who this person was, whether mass murder, a true pro player, or the god of war, and that was the strongest in Chrono Life. Seeing this information made the man angry and annoyed. He felt that those who did this were bugs or hackers, and that was a reasonable opinion. The yellow-haired man also commented that 1 versus 3 million wouldn't make sense, and both women also agreed that the numbers could be overcome with attributes and control. Everyone wants to band-aid and seek justice by blocking their IP, deleting their character, and permanently banning their account. Finally, the Chrono Life system officially announced the current situation. Someone shouted guillotine on who thought he was going to judge Li Jiwu. The guillotine is a machine or tool for beheading people, usually used to execute death row inmates. However, the official Chrono Life website provides information that according to investigations, the user is not a hacker or bug actor. He is just a normal user, and he really follows the rules and regulations in the game. Everyone who read the information from the official site was stunned, and the controversy that had occurred so far ended. A purple-haired person told the bald man about the latest news that the Chrono Life server was down because of the person who had the greatest power in Chrono Life. People talked about Li Jiwu killing many people in an instant, and thought it was amazing. People around ask what the game's greatest man looks like in the real world, and they're not sure if he's wearing a cover-up in the wanted photo, back in the gaming world. Love was annoyed because Li Jiwu always followed him everywhere. Li Jiwu said with a guilty face that he should have done the hunting as a party. Hearing Li Wiju's words, Love was very angry, and felt that he did not agree with her, and Love would not go hunting as a party with someone as poor and indecent as Li Jiwu. Li Wiju was confused as to why he was indecent. Love explained that he was indecent because he only wore underwear under his robe and a wooden stick that could only be used at level 1. Love was angry and left Li Jiwu because he didn't have time to play with a newbie. But Li Jiwu was still confused, even though he was the one who saved and got rid of the monsters in one hit. Urus made Li Jiwu realize that Love's eyes were closed when Li Wijo saved Love. Li Jiwu has an idea and will hide his power from Love. Li Jiwu followed Love and asked for help in dealing with the enemy because he was actually just playing games, so he didn't know anything. Seeing Li Jiwu like this made Urus confused. With her cunning eyes, Li Jiwu pretends to be weak and will appear weak to heal her strength. Urus was confused by the word cure Li Jiwu's strength, because he thought that only stupid people would cure his strength like Li Jiwu did. Love was very happy to be called Mater by Li Jiwu, and a master had to help newbies, and Master Love would help just once with a face full of arrogance. Somewhere around the front village area of the beginner dungeon, you can see Master Love beating up a rabbit monster called Bunny Bear at level 4. The monster received an attack from Master Love, which made the Bunny Bear monster fall. Master Love has killed several Bunny Bear monsters with jumps, punches, and kicks. Even though there are a large number of Bunny Bear monsters, Master Love can still finish them off. Seeing Master Love beat Master Bunny Bear, Li Jiwu just looked at it and thought that Love had pretty good equipment. Hearing that the price of Master Love's weapon reached 10 million gold, Li Jiwu was very shocked because 10 million gold was equivalent to 10 million in cash. Master Love also has other extraordinary equipment with a total of around 100 million gold, equivalent to 100 million won. Li Jiwu was confused because Master Love was not a newbie but had all the equipment. Urus reminded that Love has a P2W that could even cost more than 100 million. But suddenly, Master Love was annoyed with him, even though Love was protecting him. But that didn't mean he would just sit there and do nothing, and asked Li Jiwu to hit the monster with the wooden contact. Hearing Love's request to hit the monster with his wooden stick, Li Jiwu became confused and pale-faced. He saw the monster Bunny Bear approaching Master Love. He had no other choice but to use his stick. When the wooden stick hit the monster immediately exploded and disappeared, making Master Love confused about what wind he had just blown. However, suddenly, you saw an incoming message reminding you that the game would start in 10 minutes and asking Master Love to leave the game. Reading the message, Master Love will log out of the game and come back later. Love promised only 10 minutes to get out of the game and asked him to practice hunting monsters. Finally, Love left the game. But suddenly the door opened, and there was a woman with short hair who was angry and said Love was a crazy woman. The woman was angry that Love was still sitting wearing the clothes and asked if she was going to leave her job. Love said in a high voice that he had let it go. The short-haired woman asked to sit down because she had less than 10 minutes left. Love felt that the woman was very talkative, and the woman scolded Love because Love was playing games with glasses again. Love felt he would get an anxiety disorder if he didn't wear glasses, and he could get rid of them. The woman cursed that, because instead of money, she would have killed Love right then and there, and immediately committed suicide. The woman then dressed Love by taking off her glasses and starting to apply powder and lipstick. Then Love performed his stage act by thanking the audience that they had waited too long, and this would be the last performance for Music Bank today, and first place for 13 consecutive weeks. Love is the best singer and writer. Love greeted the audience with her beauty and introduced her stage name as Love. Stage name Love, 18 years old, an idol singer and songwriter. Gaming is his hobby, which is not known to the public. In the game world, Lee Ji-woo is seen practicing skills before Master Love returns. Urus is confused about how else to train to increase strength. Lee Ji-woo had to train again because he had to hide his strength, or in other words, practice hitting without having to kill. The yellow-haired boy felt that hitting without killing would be very fun. Han Love, also known as Love in the world of online games, entered the music industry at a young age and experienced initial difficulties and was not popular for some time. Now he has established himself as an idol and the best singer and writer. The host congratulated Love on winning first place 14 times in a row. The presenter liked the sad lyrics of one of the songs entitled Story of the Little Mermaid and felt that the song's lyrics were very touching. Love, with a very sweet smile, explained that because he liked being alone at home, he often read poetry and sometimes read fairy tales. The presenter said so that's why the title is Story of the Little Mermaid. However, after the presenter said this, Love remembered that he shouldn't have mentioned the fairy tale. Love felt embarrassed because reading fairy tales was a childish hobby. However, the presenter explained that the hobby of reading fairy tales is an interesting hobby and can inspire many people's lives. Love smiled at the presenter's words. The short-haired woman heard Love's words on television and made her very sick because she felt that Love had deceived the entire nation with lies and felt that Love was very clever in using these tactics. The short-haired woman, whom Love calls sister, knows that Love doesn't like poetry and fairy tales, and that her hobby that the public doesn't know about is playing online games. Love is an artist who is popular not only as a songwriter and singer, but is also popular because of his acting, and Love plays an interesting role in the drama he plays. Love in public creates a good image if he is a person who has never said anything harsh or cursed since he was born. However, things were different when Love was in online games. He was someone who often cursed and said rude things. Love is the type of person who relieves stress from everyday life by playing games. Love is now back in the gaming world, and currently he is teaching Lee Ji-woo how to defend himself against monsters and must call Love Master. Urus felt annoyed seeing Lee Ji-woo being treated rudely by Love, and asked Lee Ji-woo to quickly leave a very rude person like Love. However, Lee Ji-woo remained patient because he was hiding his strength and had to act as if he was weak. Instantly, Love looked at Lee Ji-woo by saying Master Love in a loud voice. After the disciplinary technique was completed, Love and Lee Ji-woo passed through a cave filled with very hard stone walls. Love, who felt like Lee Ji-woo's master, felt that Lee Ji-woo had to practice a lot to hunt monsters. Lee Ji-woo felt he needed a process of extreme patience because the journey was far from over. Seeing what Lee Ji-woo did, Urus felt that the technique of hitting without killing was very useless. Lee Ji-woo asked Urus to be quiet. Han Love, whose name in the game world is Love, asked the name of Lee Weeju's character because he felt he had known him for a long time, but didn't know his name. Lee Ji-woo was confused when asked for his character's name because he had to hide his identity. When Lee Weeju was confused, Love immediately made the decision that Lee Ji-woo's name in the game character was Panty, because that was the most suitable name for Lee Ji-woo. When Love and Panty were talking to each other, there was a man who looked at the two of them closely from behind. The man who follows Love and Panty is actually just looking for love, and this old man feels he has found love. One of the disciples of the black-robed old man asked them what they should do. The old man, with a fierce gaze, asked all guild members to gather in the dungeon, because today they would uphold justice. Love and Panty have entered the game at the stage of attacking the bunny bear monster. Love asks Panty to finish off the mustard bunny bear. Panty didn't use her power to attack it, made the bunny bear monster feel confused. Panty attacked the bunny bear with very slow blows, and the wooden stick only touched the fur of the bunny bear monster. However, the blow that only touched the tip of the bunny bear monster's hair made the monster fall to the ground covered in blood. Seeing Li Jiwu's success against the bunny bear monster made Love amazed, and felt that Patty or Li Jiwu had grown so strong. However, Panty actually used the technique of hitting without killing. Suddenly, from an unexpected direction, a sword shot towards Love. Love and Panty were very surprised by the arrival of the sword. Luckily, Love and Panty were able to avoid the sword. It turned out that the sword was the one thrown by the old man who had been observing Love from afar. The man took his sword back and thought that Love was great, but he asked to give him his equipment. Love felt angry and asked who the person who threw the sword was. The old man who attacked Love was named MT, Halasan Guild, or usually called Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim has two members named Mr. Choi and Mr. O. Mr. Choi is a person with one eye covered by a cloth, and Mr. O is a person with a mouth covering. Love was very shocked when he heard the Halasan Guild in front of him. Halasan asked his members to immediately attack Love, but Love asked Panty to leave immediately and would take care of it himself. Members of the Halasan Guild attacked viciously, using extremely sharp swords. Love repelled the attack with a kick to the faces of the Halasan members, which made the Halasan members fall and their teeth fell out. Love pressed Halasan's head with his foot, so he couldn't get up again. Love jumped in the middle of the Halasan members, which shocked the Halasan members. Love uses the Fallen Dragon Domp technique to consume all the students from Halasan. This technique is a fist technique that can create a blue dragon in its power. The people from the Halasan Guild fought with Love, but they had fought several times but always lost to Love. However, Halasan didn't know how long he would stop attacking, because he was always coming to take revenge. Instantly, Halasan's men actually died at Love's hands. Panty felt that the members of Halasan were weak members, because a group of people who were at level 20 could be destroyed by Love. Seeing all this, Halasan felt that his plan had succeeded, so he asked the woman with long ears to immediately move. Feeling that there was something behind Love, Love was alert, and when she looked back, it turned out that behind her was a woman with long ears, who was showing off her long nails. Seeing the woman's posture, Love thought she was a class fighter because the woman attacked with her bare hands. The long-eared woman said steel and light suddenly radiated and shone brightly. Seeing the light created by this long-eared woman made Love surprised. Suddenly, Love's weapon disappeared, and that made Love panic. The long-eared woman teased Love with an evil smile and felt that the weapon was not amazing for Love. The woman taunted Love that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, which made him a very rich man who had weapons at quite fantastic prices. The skill used by the long-eared woman is called the Silence Knuckles skill, which can be purchased for 10.7k gold. Seeing the skills released by the long-eared woman made Panty shocked and felt that they were skills from the upper class. Li Jiwo, with a strength that didn't convince many people, didn't mind all that, because he felt he didn't have anything to steal, and all Panty had so far were only panties and a robe. Seeing Halasan and the long-eared woman, Panty pretended as if she wanted to hit them with her wooden stick. But Halasan feels that Panty has strength too. Halasan let Panty go because just by looking at Panty, who was only wearing panties and a robe, it was clear that Panty was a beginner, so she didn't have anything to steal. But suddenly the glove moved and flew and was asked by the long-eared woman. Long-eared woman. It would be very fun if she stole things from people who had nothing. The long-eared woman greeted Panty and asked where she was going after meeting the long-eared woman. However, with the insistence of this long-eared woman, Panty couldn't make a choice because this wasn't the time to hide her strength. Panty felt like she was going to use her wooden stick, but when she was about to use it, it turned out that the wooden stick was already in the hand of the long-eared woman. The woman will continue to steal until she steals Panty's black robe and takes Panty's panties too. When the long-eared woman was about to use the wooden stick, suddenly the monster Urus appeared from the stick. The Urus monster came out of the stick angrily and felt that the woman dared to use Panty's wooden stick without knowing who the monster really was. Seeing the monster come out of the wood, the woman was shocked and made the wood fall from the long-eared woman's grasp. The wooden stick was taken again by Panty. The system informs that Urus's soul refuses to surrender to the enemy, and Panty is now the owner of this wooden stick weapon. Urus felt very, very annoyed that someone else would try to have it, because the only person who could have the wooden stick was only Li Jiwu, and the woman thought too highly of herself. Panty calms Urus by rubbing his head, and this makes Urus feel embarrassed. This long-eared woman was very scared and felt that this was a real ghost. Seeing the wooden stick returning to Panty, the woman felt very angry and wanted to immediately attack Panty with her death claws and ask for her weapon to be returned. The woman smiled evilly and felt that the attack she had made earlier was quite a vicious attack, although she still felt afraid because she had hit the wrong target. However, when Love wanted to attack the long-eared woman, Panty suddenly hit Love on the head lightly, which made Love faint. This is so that Love does not know the technical skills that Panty actually has. Seeing Panty making a Love was unconscious. The woman was confused about why she had to do this because they were supposed to be together. Li Jiwu emphasized that he had to hide his strength. Instantly, Panty used her strength and used the wooden stick well. One blow caused an explosion and rendered all his enemies helpless, including Halasan. Immediately, the long-eared woman was shocked and didn't expect this to be Panty's doing. Not wanting to waste time, Li Jiwu angrily confirmed that this was the result of his actions and immediately hit the woman. The blow of the wooden stick on the woman was not too hard, so the woman just fell to the ground. However, the woman did not give up because she had gone through a lot and would become stronger mentally. However, Li Jiwu felt annoyed with the woman with long ears, because Li Jiwu felt like he was almost having a heart attack. In annoyance, Panty this time hit the woman with a very hard wooden stick, which made a very big explosion. Under the tree, Panty waited for Love to wake up from fainting. Suddenly there was a cracking sound which indicated that Love was starting to regain consciousness. When he woke up, Love felt he had to quickly fight and eliminate his enemies. But all that happened was seeing Panty sitting under a tree and enjoying a piece of meat in peace. Seeing all this, Love felt confused about where she was and what had happened to them. Li Jiwu explained while eating his favorite meat that he was in the field near the dungeon, and they had already escaped. Love was increasingly confused. Why did they leave? And why did he faint? Love is shocked to see his knuckle weapon return to Love. Panty is curious about the Halasan Guild about what work they do and what they did to attack Love. Hearing many questions from Panty, Love pinched Panty's cheek and reminded her not to act cool if you don't want to die. Because Panty is involved with Love, Love wants to explain about Halasan. Guild Halasan is one of the people who entered P2W. P2W is an abbreviation for pay to win in online games. To be clear, P2W was the main user base of the lineage in the 30s and 50s, and in the P2W class it was considered a class that took billing induction for granted. And at the same time, they were the strongest in financial strength among the big gamers. They are the main customers of the billing business model, and also the main contributors in increasing sales in the gaming market. The highest P2W top-up is around 30 million won per month, and the upper class has more than 10 billion won in cash. There are also wallet nights in other games, but P2W users think that this action will actually help increase competitiveness beyond playing skill. Simply put, they P2W are people who spend billions of money on gaming. A few months ago, Love bought the knuckle by chance at an auction house. And one day the Halasan Guild started chasing Love and trying to take it from her. However, they are old-fashioned parents, and their control is poor, so Love can win in every meeting. Love suddenly remembered why he could actually get it back from them. Panty's face was shocked because the question was too sudden. Panty said that they forgot about the weapon and just left it there. Even though Love doesn't know what really happened, Love is sure that the old man is still obsessed and will look for him again. Panty put her hand on her chin and was confused as to why they were so persistent in getting Love's weapon. Love emphasized with a firm face that his knuckle was worth 10 million gold, which was equivalent to 10 million cash. Li Jiwu felt very strange because an old person was still obsessed and spent 10 million won just buying weapons, and felt that there was definitely someone else he would target. Night has arrived. The crescent moon accompanied by stars looks very beautiful. At the Halasan Guild hideout, he apologized profusely to the person in front of him, while bowing his head in regret and asking for help to be given one more chance. The man in the long coat was angry and asked the Halasan Guild to be quiet because he felt that the Halasan Guild was useless and could not waste any more time and would hand over its mission to the 4 heavenly kings. Suddenly, behind the Halasan Guild, someone came and interrupted the conversation that the Halasan Guild had not yet gotten rid of the weak love, and one of his colleagues also boasted that he had already dealt with 3 cases. It turns out that those who came were the 3 members of the Heavenly Kings, namely the Halasan Guild, the second of the 4 Heavenly Kings, which has a net worth of 1.7 billion. The characteristic of the second Halasan Guild is that one eye is closed like a pirate. Halasan Guild, third of the 4 Heavenly Kings, with a net worth of 1.4 billion. The characteristic of the third Halasan Guild is that they wear jewels on their heads. And the last one is the first Halasan Guild, which has a net worth of 2.1 billion. The hallmark of the Halasan Guild is 1 green eyes, like a cat, and additional ears on the head. The second Halasan Guild mocked Halasan 4 that the strategy used was very bad by using mercenaries, which made the mission fail. The first Halasan Guild asked the king that he would carry out the failed mission that the 4th Halasan Guild had done to retrieve the Silence Knuckle and arrogantly would get it in half a day. The king was happy with the statement from the first Halasan Guild and asked to go immediately and show them the terror of the Halasan Guild. The cunning plan depicts hallucinations for dramatic bloodshed. However, what happened was that Panty came to the throne of the king of the Halasan Guild, and it shocked the king. Who is this person and where did he come from to suddenly enter the kingdom? Casually putting his little finger in his nose, he asked the king to find out for himself who Panty really was. Panty asked the Halasan Guild not to disturb Captain Love, because it would be difficult for her brother to heal his powers if they continued to disturb Love, and here it would be difficult for Panty to just pretend. With an evil laugh, Panty challenged the 4 heavenly kings to fight with Panty and immediately solve the problem. The king ordered the 3 heavenly kings to immediately kill him. The 3 heavenly kings shot with the power they possessed towards Li Jiwu. Li Jiwu, in an arrogant manner, hit a wooden stick at them, and there was a very powerful explosion that sent the 3 of them flying backwards. On the other hand, Love is singing her song in the middle of the forest. But on the other hand, Panty is still fighting with the 3 Halasan Guilds, causing an explosion in the Halasan Guild safe house. Li Jiwu had succeeded in eradicating all the members of the Halasan Guild. But the king didn't understand all this because all of his guild members were P2W players, and even the weakest among the guild members who had just spent at least 10 million, and even the 5 big guilds couldn't look down on them. Li Jiwu felt that P2W would have a sad ending. The Halasan Guild King in the real world is a hard worker who, as he gets older and is swept away by his responsibilities, leads a busy life where he can't spare time to reminisce about the past. The Halasan Guild King in the real world gives special prizes to himself who has worked harder than anyone else through online games. Through this online game, the king of the Halasan Guild in the real world will feel his heart pounding, as if he had returned to that time. When Panty was about to hit the Halasan Guild King, suddenly, the Halasan Guild King bought the newest weapon at a much higher price. Guild King Halasan felt that he was not the only one who had changed due to the turbulence of time, and that he did not need to bother. With just a few mouse clicks, he can be as powerful as he wants, and with that power, users who spend little or even F2W will suffer abuse. Pay to win. Such is the reality of online F-games today. The Halasan Guild King in the real world continues to explore many games, but they are all the same. And finally, the critically acclaimed game is Chrono Life. Then the Halasan Guild King returned to the game. After Li Jiwu felt proud for hitting the Halasan Guild King and hoped that he would die soon and not be able to bother Master Love anymore. But what happened was that the king of the Halasan Guild rose again and provided information that Panty was actually the person who had killed all the 5 large guilds not long ago and destroyed 3 million guild alliances in the world. The Halasan Guild King, arrogantly, thought that Panty had spent a lot of money and it must have been just to gain his power. Panty was confused by all the Hallison Guild King's explanations regarding the struggle, but Lee Jiwo had indeed topped up quite a lot for this game. Hearing that Lee Jiwoo also paid a lot for this game made King Guid Hallison feel shocked and estimate how much money was spent, whether it was tens of billions or hundreds of billions. Lee Weiju only spent 55,000 won for the beginner warrior package. Hearing the money that Lee Jiwoo spent made the king of the Hallison Guild amazed and didn't realize whether that little amount was enough to gain great power. Guild King Hallison suddenly remembered his childhood when he enjoyed playing online games. Guild King Hallison laughed, remembering all the games he had played, and felt that this game was a very fun game. Suddenly someone came from behind and interjected that Chrono Life was the greatest, and that shocked the Hallison Guild King. The orange-haired woman greeted the Hallison Guild people with a cheerful face. The woman comments that it has been a while since she came here, but the guild's hideout is in bad shape. This orange-haired woman asked about her mission so that it could run well. But the king of the Hallison Guild wanted to quit his mission and wanted to end the agreement for cooperation with the woman. Hearing these words, the woman did not accept it and immediately attacked the king of the Hallison Guild until he fell to the ground. The fourth Hallison Guild was stunned to see the king of the Hallison Guild being killed by the orange-haired woman. The woman, with a sly smile, finished off the Hallison Guild King and warned him about the reason he was doing this. The woman also used her stick to attack the Hallison Guild by pressing the stick on the fourth Guild Hallison's back. The fourth Hallison Guild felt in pain and wanted to cry. Suddenly blood came out of Guild Hallison 4's mouth. The woman stuck her stick into Guild Hallison until he died with a sly smile. The system then appears to congratulate you on reaching the highest level. Seeing the system, Lee Jiwoo felt confused and checked the status window. How surprised Lee Jiwoo was after looking at her windows that she entered LV 999. Chrono Life is now number 1 in the world in number of active users, number 1 in the world in user subscribers, number 1 in the world in marketing, and also number 1 in the world according to user feedback, and become the best virtual reality game in the world. Urus was proud of Lee Jiwoo's achievements, and Urus still couldn't believe that Lee Jiwoo was believed to be the first master level in the world. Lee Jiwoo got the master level because the first time he got the wooden stick, he still killed 800,000 players. And at that time, countless monsters and dungeons were also within his attack range. In addition, the strongest boss monster, Chrono Life Urus, is the Urus army, which is included in the highest level dungeon, and which was obtained for slaughtering 3 million people from the World Guild Alliance, and of course the destruction of the planet. By reaching the master level, the player will enter the transcendental space. On the hill, Love lay looking at the stars and crescent moon in the very beautiful sky, and Love felt very bored. Love felt annoyed when he remembered Panty, because he told him to wait a while, but the sun had already set. Panty hadn't come home either. Remembering Panty made Love even more annoyed, and threw his body on the ground again. Hanzarang waited for Panty for another hour while he put his body to sleep. But on the other hand, Lee Jiwoo didn't know where he was. Everything looked strange except for the tall poles and the vast grassland. Panty was dragged without consent for this final ending. And it was like when meeting God and also when meeting the president of Chrono Life. Suddenly a voice was heard from an unknown direction saying, "Welcome to Lee Weijou." The voice turned out to be the voice of a transcendent mentor who really didn't expect to meet Lee Jiwoo so soon. The transcendent will be happy to guide and welcome Lee Jiwoo. Transcendent really praises Lee Jiwoo for taking a very difficult journey. Lee Jiwoo's efforts to achieve mastery with a beginner's job are worthy of everyone's respect. Hearing the words beginner Urus was shocked and thought that Lee Jiwoo definitely hadn't changed his job. Then the system opens and informs that the conditions have been met and the transition to the hidden class has begun. The system provides information that the sword soul, bow soul, wand soul, knuckle soul, spear soul, blunt soul, dagger soul, and the souls of all weapons have seeped into Lee Jiwoo's body. The system announces that the job change is complete, which means job privileges, Master Novice, will be granted. All raised statistics will be initialized, and the statistics that can be distributed will increase threefold. Urus was surprised to see the increase in distribution statistics, which reached 14,985 due to the weakness of the hidden class change, so that statistics could increase 3 times. Even though at that time Li Jiwu could only get 5 points every time he rose to level 15, even that was another maximum user, and Li Jiwu's statistics would rise 3 times higher. Li Jiwu saw this very surprised and confused, because he felt that all of this made no sense, because this would be considered the greatest achievement in the gaming world community. Li Jiwu was very happy because he saw the statistics he had, and had a large number of stat points. Deal with the shock of Li Jiwu because she had used up her stat points so quickly without considering what weapon she would use. Suddenly, the system announced that Li Jiwu had used up all his stats points. Li Jiwu, with his arrogant face, felt that he didn't need any other statistics now, and that made Urus feel like Li Jiwu was very stupid and a loser. In the real world, in the middle of a magnificent city, suddenly there are noisy footsteps walking and indicating that there is a problem. The president of Chrono Life was very curious about the problem that was occurring, but the employees asked him to look into the problem himself, because this was a problem for the game users in it. The president of Chrono Life looked at the game system screen and saw that the wooden stick boy had finally reached the maximum level. Regarding the level, it actually doesn't matter. But what Li Jiwu did by spending points to distribute one statistic surprised everyone. The president of Chrono Life was curious about the statistics chosen by Li Weiju. When he saw the statistics chosen by Li Weiju, the president of Chrono Life burst out laughing because he apparently really enjoyed the game in his own way. One of the Chrono Life employees is a little worried about Li Jiwu's behavior, because this is no longer a joke, but will become a trash character with no future. Chrono Life employees questioned if Li Jiwu knew he would build a trash character, then who knows what he would do in anger. But the president asked his employees not to pay attention to it because he has said repeatedly that gaming companies have no right to be involved in their usage choices. However, Chrono Life employees remain afraid and ask the president of Chrono Life to take immediate action. But the president of Chrono Life ignored him and immediately walked away. As he stepped open the door with a cigarette in his mouth, the president of Chrono Life still couldn't believe Li Jiwu that he invested all his points in those statistics, and even Master Novice, who had a trash character that people thought had no future. In the history of virtual reality games, the strongest and worst character has just been born. Transcendent provided guidance that this was the final step of guidance, and Li Jiwu was given a choice in the form of the right to one of the transcendent weapons that Transcendent held, which would be given to Li Jiwu. Li Jiwu felt happy and lucky because he was given it for free by Transcendent, and he would not refuse it. Li Jiwu felt confused about which weapon to choose, because all the weapons looked cool. Li Jiwu had decided to take all the weapons. However, Transcendent cannot fulfill all his requests, because excessive greed will result in great anger, so Transcendent asks to choose wisely. Li Jiwo gave the Transcendent a captor to give him everything after being able to defeat the Transcendent, or give him everything directly without a fight. Hearing Li Jiwu's offer made Urus, Chrono Life employees, and even the president of Chrono Life shocked and called him crazy. The system displays that the god of occupation is very angry, and the system informs Li Jiwo now has an adversarial relationship with the good of occupation. Transcendent was very angry, as if he wanted to beat Li Jiwu with the power of the weapons he had. On the other hand, Li Jiwu mocked the god of occupation that he wanted to beat the god of occupation. God of occupation became increasingly angry and used all his strength to attack Li Jiwu. The god of occupation attacked Li Jiwo using an axe that shone so brightly that it emitted blue light. Urus was very afraid of the fight between Li Jiwu and God of Occupation. God of Occupation did not expect to kill a Transcendent with his own hands. Li Jiwu continued to mock God of Occupation because a god could kill Li Jiwu. Li Jiwu is very confident because the game can affect maximum HP and HP recovery, and can also be influenced by status effect immunity. Urus felt that Li Jiwu had made a big mistake, and would become an annoying trash character. All equipment in Chrono Life has a weight load, and it is necessary to meet the minimum strength requirements, and no matter the job. That's why Li Jiwu will no longer be able to use his equipment except for the wooden stick. However, Li Jiwu casually only needed the wooden stick, and that made Urus even more shocked. Suddenly, the system appeared showing the current condition of hidden skills, and how surprised Urus was to see Li Jiwu's progress, because he received full immunity to status effects such as poison, disease, paralysis, and others, and would soon recover. Seeing all this, God of Occupation felt even more angry and felt challenged by Li Jiwo. God of Occupation immediately attacked with blue light emitted from his eyes that penetrated his stomach to his back, which made Li Jiwo bounce to the ground. However, it turns out that Li Jiwo didn't die, but on the contrary, Li Jiwo looked happy, because it would be as expected, the extraordinary Chrono Life. Seeing all that, the God of Occupation attacked again with a sword in his hand. Li Jiwo didn't die, but his strength increased. The God of Occupation is getting increasingly angry with Li Jiwo's behavior, and will resolve it now. Li Jiwo felt grateful to have received many benefits, and asked to give him all his weapons. God of Occupation makes you aware that your endless greed will destroy it one day. Then now it was Li Jiwo's turn to attack using wood in a vertical strike direction, which made the explosion stronger and killed the God of Occupation. The system displays information that the God of Occupation no longer exists. Transcendental space will be destroyed, and Li Jiwo will be forced to return to Li Jiwo's homeworld. Suddenly, Li Jiwo realized that he was in the middle of a forest full of smog. Weapons resulting from the war with the God of Occupation are being fought, such as Transcendent Dagger, Transcendent Spear, Transcendent Bow, Transcendent Axe, Transcendent Longsword, Transcendent Sword, Transcendent Chakra, Transcendent Scythe, Transcendent Wand. The system appeared again and explained that Li Jiwo had become the owner of all transcendent weapons, and that made Li Jiwo's heart happy. Transcendent weapons would be moved to subspace, and they would always answer Li Jiwo's calls. Hearing all that made Li Jiwo feel extraordinary. On the other hand, Love is still waiting for Panty to arrive. Love was very angry because Panty never came and wouldn't believe him and didn't care whatever reason Panty said. While Love was angry, suddenly Panty came home and greeted Love. But instead of happiness and a smile, on the contrary, Panty received a fatal punch right in the face. Love scolded Li Jiwo and stepped on Panty's body because he told her to wait a moment, but Li Jiwo came late at night. Panty apologizes to Love and gives the excuse that she thought she would come back sooner. But several things held her back, and now she is here. Love sulked and left Li Jiwo alone on a hillside. Love is very disappointed and he will immediately log out of the game. But instead of stopping Love from logging out of the game, he just left Love and said, "See you again." This made Love even more annoyed and wanted to immediately log out of the game. Love suddenly stopped walking and reminded him that he would finish work at 7:30 tomorrow night, so he asked Li Jiwo to log into the game again. But in his heart, Love grumbled that if Panty was late again, then he would really kill her. Panty felt confused and resigned herself to logging out now because in the real world, it was already past midnight. Panty finally chose to log out of the game. In the real world, Li Jiwo felt very sleepy, but felt that today was extraordinary, and thought Chrono Life was really fun. While walking in the middle of the city, Li Jiwo imagined the price of the transcendent weapon he had obtained. Because transcendent is one of the transcendent grade items that will probably make a lot of money if sold. But suddenly Li Jiwo remembered that it was a transcendent item, and could it be bought and sold? And it would be a shame if it couldn't be bought and sold. Suddenly, in a food stall, the voice of someone who was hungry and wanted a bowl of gukbap was heard. However, when Li Jiwo looked at his wallet, only one note remained in his wallet, so he decided not to buy it. With his head down, Li Jiwo lamented his fate as a poor person. Li Jiwo sighed and complained that gaming costs were increasing day by day, and was still considering whether to increase his part-time job shifts. Suddenly, Li Jiwo remembered Love's weapons, which had a high price, and Li Jiwo had the idea to sell the items in the game and exchange them for money. Having this brilliant idea, Li Jiwo felt happy and ran in the middle of the city. Chrono Life is the #1 game in the world. All rankers in this game already know that there is a forbidden place in Chrono Life, namely a place at the intersection of life and death, in the form of a grave for all humans, which is the highest level hunting place in history, and no one can for certain reasons. Unknown, and the area remains hidden. A place in Chrono Life where the strongest boss monster Urus lives in it, and there is an abyss of death. Because Li Jiwo had visited Urus and felt that it was thanks to Urus that all this happened, Li Jiwo felt indebted. Li Jiwo now marks that today will be the end of his poor life, and it will be time to make a lot of money and become a rich man. In a valley of death, is one of the highest level hunting grounds in Chrono Life. There are 3 strongest Eurus troops, namely Turbid of Despair, Lapis of the Abyss, Trician of Dawn, and they are very easy to destroy with Li Jiwu with just 2 vertical strikes. Then the valuable items poured out like falling rain. Urus is proud and also surprised because Li Jiwo has been able to finish off only the mustard, but he says this is just the beginning. Li Jiwo saw the monsters in the Valley of Death respawning. Respawn is a phenomenon where monsters die and then appear again after a certain time, but special entities such as the twin-headed dragon Urus cannot respawn. In the past, in the real world, there was a very interesting teaching at Harvard University. The lecturer showed a character named Bill Gates, who's the richest person in the world and the founder of Microsoft. Due to his wealth, if he found $100, which was around 120,000 won on the ground, he would definitely not take it. Then the lecturer asked the students why it happened like that. The lecturer explained that if Bill Gates took it from the ground, it would be an economic loss for him, and it would only take him 2-3 seconds to curl up and receive the bill. But if he earns at least $150 per second, then in other words, he will lose $200 economically. Back again in the game world, Li Jiwu was very enthusiastic about killing the monsters in the Valley of Death. Monster delay respawn takes 100 times. In about 1 hour, Li Jiwu was able to produce a total of items collected around 15 billion gold, or the equivalent of 15 billion won in money. In this way, young people who previously worked part-time in a department store can now earn an income that exceeds the income level of the richest people in the world. In the real world, Li Jiwu visited a famous clothing store. Li Jiwu dressed up with a cooler look with clothes worth 2,040,000 won and pants worth 1,510,000 won, and don't forget sandals worth 620,000 won. What's more, the yellow luxury car is equipped with other expensive items. Everyone was very surprised to see Li Weiju's change. Everyone admired the yellow car that Li Jiwu was driving so much that they felt like they were shaking. Li Jiwu was very proud of getting into his expensive vehicle and showing off to everyone that he was no longer poor. Li Jiwu wanted to drive his car fast, but what happened was that Li Jiwu crashed his car into an iron pole which destroyed his expensive car. Seeing the damage to his car, Li Jiwu was very shocked and hysterical, because he felt that this was not a cheap price, and he had just bought it for 400 million won. However, this was no longer a problem for Li Jiwu, because he was now a rich man, and bought another new blue car. The president of Chrono Life sat casually while lighting a cigarette, when suddenly his employees reported that his company was in chaos. The value of new items and equipment being released on the market is around more than 15 billion, and all items are the best. Due to this, the speed of content consumption has increased by up to 2 years, and large fluctuations in asset values have become a problem. The biggest problem is that because of recent events, many people doubt the company's credibility, so they can immediately see a decline in share prices. Hearing reports from his employees, the president of Chrono Life bowed his head wearily and let out a long breath. The president of Chrono Life asked for a way to block Li Jiwu's transactions, but this could not happen because Li Jiwu had recently legalized gaming cash transactions. Hearing this chaos made the president confused and called Li Jiwu to ask about all this. However, when Li Jiwu answered the phone call from the president, the main thing that was conveyed was bragging that Li Jiwu could now waste money buying luxury goods. Hearing his words, the president suddenly became angry and cursed at Li Jiwu. Li Jiwu felt that the president was not in a good condition, and Li Jiwu immediately ended the call. Li Jiwu lay in the car feeling happy and proud and thinking about what else to buy. But suddenly Li Jiwu thought that something was missing, and that was the most important main point, namely the most comfortable halfway house. But before Li Jiwu moved into her new house, she would give rice cakes to her next-door neighbor. It turned out that the new neighbor next door was a beautiful woman, so it made Li Jiwu blush when she saw her. After seeing his new neighbor, It turns out that Lee Jiwoo is similar to Master Love, and he wants to meet him in the real world. Love was very happy to receive rice cakes from Lee Jiwoo, and Love didn't forget to say thank you and promised he would eat it well. Lee Jiwoo didn't realize that it was Master Love in the gaming world. After being given rice cakes, Han Love's older sister asked what Love had brought. Love explained that a new neighbor came and gave him rice cakes. Love and Lee Jiwoo both couldn't recognize each other because their in-game models and real-world appearances were too different. The short-haired woman who Love considers her older sister reminded Love that she had to immediately change out of her school uniform because it was almost time for the photo shoot. But here, Love feels annoyed because he feels he is considered a machine. Love's brother threatened that if he didn't want to change clothes, he could postpone it again, but with the consequence that he couldn't play games at 1930. Hearing his brother's threat, he immediately complied and hurried to change clothes. On the other hand, Lee Jiwoo has entered the world of online games, and Lee Jiwoo was very surprised that in the Valley of Death there were no more monsters. Lee Jiwoo was very annoyed and threw his frustration at Urus that his subordinate would definitely run away. Monsters are programmed to act only in certain areas, and it is impossible to escape unless the monster bugs. Lee Jiwoo found it strange why monsters kept disappearing without a trace. Seeing all that, Lee Jiwoo didn't want to bother and would look for another place to kill monsters and earn more money. Urus reminded him that today, he was supposed to meet the human named Love. Lee Jiwoo just realized that it would soon be 1930, but on the other hand, there is the arrival of the head of Urus, who disappeared in the Valley of Death, and he has the goal of destroying all humans. The name of the monster is Urukan, in the form of the missing head of Urus. In a very cold and snowy place, there lives a giant snow snake monster called Elros. This can be reached if the player is at level 190. The system displays information that the monster has absorbed the target level, but this is not enough for Uraskin. Suddenly, the cunning black-haired woman approached Uraskin and thought that Uraskin had grown as expected, but suddenly, Urukan released his strength and attacked the cunning woman as she fell in a pile of snow. However, the system informs that absorption failed. Immediately, the cunning woman woke up and scolded Urukan that he couldn't trust her. Urukan was confused and convinced about the hallucinatory magic. Urukan is confused because the cunning woman is not food he can eat because her smell is similar to Urukan. The cunning woman pointed to a place full of peaceful houses, and the cunning woman gave instructions on how to eat in that area because many humans lived there. Hearing that sentence made Urukan tempted while drooling. Urukan rushed to the village and wanted to destroy humanity according to his goals. When Urukan entered the city, all the city residents felt that a very powerful attack had hit the city. The color of the city is still confused about what happened, so the wind was so strong that it scattered several houses. Suddenly, there was a black force stabbing through a man's right chest. Suddenly, the man's aura was absorbed, and he became a wrinkled old grandfather. Little by little, Urukan uses his power to eat humans. The monster seemed to be carrying out a massacre in the beautiful village. The system displays information that Urukan has absorbed the target level many times, and all players have become food for Urukan. All players protect the village, and this village is a place where both beginners and experts actively work, which is known as the front village. There are many new players here, as well as high-level users and rankers who are already active. However, this character has been deleted. On the real-world side, Chrono Life employees reported that there were more problems in the game and many complaints from users. Customer call centers of various communities, live streaming, YouTube, and others are complaining about this game. So that this game system is like a one-on-one consultation department that is paralyzed, and all Chrono Life employees are confused by it. Many users complain that Chrono Life is now really crazy. The last user who killed 3 million people was a hacker. Seeing the complaints from these haters made the president groan in annoyance while lying his head on his chair. Suddenly, the president laughed, and his mission using Urukan was the right thing. This makes company employees confused because they don't know what else to do. The president ordered from now on to focus on monitoring only 2 characters. One is Urukan and the other is Lee Jiwoo. In the game world, Urukan makes the village look like a dead village with lots of fire burning down the village. The cunning black-haired woman was very proud of Urukan for being able to turn Front Village into a ghost village overnight. Yurukan, after eating the souls of the villagers, felt that he was not enough, and was still looking for more humans to eat. Seeing Yurukan, who was still hungry, the cunning black-haired woman made a suggestion that there was one that actually tasted really good. On the other hand, the time is already 1934. It's time to enter the world of online games again and meet Panty. However, when Love entered the game world, Lee Ji-woo, or what is usually called Panty, did not immediately meet her in the game world. Love was angry and felt that he would kill her if Panty arrived late. Suddenly there was a sound behind Love, and Love felt that the sound came from the arrival of the Panty. Love was annoyed and asked why the Panty came so late. However, Love was surprised that what came was no longer panties but Yurukan, with a face that felt like he wanted to eat her. Beck Suzy, who looked drunk, called out teasingly and told him to sit near her. But Kwon Daegun thought that he couldn't involve Beck Suzy because it would be troublesome later. On the other hand, Lee Seung-hoon, who saw that he was already drunk, started sending messages. After receiving the message, he felt happy because he was sick of waiting. Seeing Beck Suzy's behavior, Park Juri scolded her for suddenly doing that, and asked her if she wanted to tease Kwon Daegun. When told to wear a jacket, Beck Suzy reasoned that this place was very hot. She then asked Kwon Daegun to pour her a drink. Lee Seung-hoon also offered to pour it, but Beck Suzy told him not to interfere. Beck Suzy then asked Kwon Daegun if he liked girls like Ara, the smart type of girl. Beck Suzy also said that her English was also good, and started mentioning the names of various martial arts techniques. Park Yuri also said that those were all the names of jujitsu techniques. Beck Suzy then invited Kwon Daegun to play jujitsu with her. The winner enslaves the loser. Park Juri finally got fed up and asked Beck Suzy to go home. At that time, Bang Ho-jung and Jung Min became curious about what Beck Suzy meant by playing jujitsu. In the chairman's office, Seo Ji-in is looking to see if anything has been updated because since yesterday, the chairman seems busy. After Beck Suzy came out, Kim Min-soo found her because he heard it from the listening device, and he asked if he should report to Lee Saim. But Kim Min-soo decided to find out for himself. On the other hand, Park Juri admitted that she wasn't the one who did it, and Beck Suzy suddenly fainted herself. Seeing Beck Suzy's condition, Ara thought that she seemed to be asleep, and she looked like she had been drunk. They also remembered that Lee Seung-hoon mixed something in the drink earlier, but they didn't see where Lee Seung-hoon went. At that time, Lee Seung-hoon was locking the door they entered through. Seeing the liquor that Lee Seung-hoon brought, Kwon Daegun smiled and thought that the party was starting now. But before that, he asked if anyone knew Beck Suzy's house because he wanted to take her. However, Park Juri offered to accompany Beck Suzy. The worried Bang Ho-jung and No Manho asked if she was okay being alone. But Park Juri answered that she had no other choice because she couldn't hand over Beck Suzy, who was drunk, to them. When she took Beck Suzy away, she was stopped. No Manho became curious because Park Juri suddenly remained silent. Because it was Beck Suzy, they decided not to bother her, so they decided to beat the boys black and blue. He then asked if Kwon Daegun was having fun, but he was surprised because they didn't look drunk. Kwon Daegun got annoyed because he was just about to get drunk and asked if they had anything to do. They were also annoyed with Lee Seung-hoon because he couldn't do that because the situation was difficult. Hearing their conversation, Jung-min was angry because he thought he was part of their gang. Seeing Jung-min, who was angry, he said that in war, there is no such thing as honesty and justice. You could be stabbed in the back, betrayed, or even killed using a weapon. No Manho, who heard this, agreed that using weapons was a noble act. But he also has to bear the risk if he can be defeated. To divert attention, No Manho asked where he got the stick because it looked expensive, and he answered that he got it by a thief. While distracted, No Manho threw meat at his face. This made him angry, and No Manho challenged him to fight. He accepted it and ordered the rest to attack Kwon Daegun. They were also warned that Kwon Daegun had beaten Midway Road, so don't think of him as a human, but an animal. Kwon Daegun put down his liquor and told Bang Ho-jung and Jung Min to look after Park Yuri and Ara so they wouldn't get involved. But Kwon Daegun thought unless they were idiots, they would definitely just focus on him. Once again, they were warned that Kwon Daegun was very strong. Kwon Daegun then stretched his tie and said that they misjudged something. He told them to raise their weapons because he was ready to do anything, because depending on their abilities, the strength of their fists may change. Hearing Kwon Daegon's provocation, they were very annoyed and said that they had more than 10 armed people. But Kwon Daegon answered with a cold look that he knew, so he wouldn't let them go. In an instant, Kwon Daegon hit 2 people. In an instant. He then rushed to fight them all. Even in front of 10 armed people, Kwon Daegon was able to disarm them by hitting their hands and then kicking them in the stomach. On the other hand, No Manho's opponent was very annoyed because No Manho kept dodging. Hearing his opponent's scolding, No Manho decided to finish this. His opponent was annoyed because No Manho seemed to know his movement patterns, but No Manho said it didn't make sense, and said that he saw that his opponent's stick was real, and he was testing it. He was fed up and swung his bat with all his might, but he was shocked when he saw No Manho disappear. No Manho then appeared from his left side and hit him with his stick. When he tried to reply back, No Manho disappeared from his sight again. Soon after, No Manho appeared from behind and hit him. He wondered why he couldn't see No Manho, but he finally realized when No Manho threw meat at his glasses. No Manho, who was aware of his conscious opponent, mocked him by saying that pork belly fat is delicious but sticky. He was very fed up with No Manho, who had only been swinging to the left, but for No Manho it was too late. With his stick, No Manho finished off his opponent. Having no other choice, they were forced to try to take Park Juri hostage, but Park Juri kicked him in the crotch and grabbed his collar and slammed him down. Park Juri also asked if he thought women couldn't fight. Park Juri then intended to help Kwon Daegon, but the man who Park Juri slammed was still conscious and took his wooden stick. He was very angry and decided not to care anymore and die together. But Park Juri threw herself to protect Baek Suzy. After defeating his opponent, No Manho took his opponent's bat. He then looked at Kwon Daegon's side and thought that he was almost done too. But suddenly No Manho noticed the sandals that had been thrown at Ara. He hit the sandals and asked if she was okay. At that time, Ara blushed because No Manho had saved her. On Kwon Daegon's side, Kwon Daegon finished off his opponents one by one. But when he beat them up, he was stopped because Park Gyuri was taken hostage. He threatened that if Kwon Daegon moved just 1 centimeter, he would cut Park Gyuri. He then assured Park Gyuri that he would let him go if Park Gyuri obeyed him. But suddenly someone attacked him from behind. He was surprised to find that it was Lee Seung-hoon who attacked him. Lee Seung-hoon said it was natural that he always felt uncomfortable being involved with them. They apparently tried to cross the line. Kwon Daegon had thought that Lee Seung-hoon had betrayed him, but he didn't think so. Kwon Daegon then looked at the person he grabbed and finished him off. Then Kwon Daegon demanded Lee Seung-hoon to explain. First of all, Lee Seung-hoon asked Kwon Daegon to calm down and assured him that this was not what Kwon Daegon thought. He admitted that he had lied about him having nothing to do with the sacred lineage, so he apologized about that. Young-min became angry, but he was told to be quiet by Kwon Daegon, and Kwon Daegon told Lee Seung-hoon to finish his story. Lee Seung-hoon explained that it was true that he planned this with them. Initially, they were going to attack Kwon Daegon after Lee Seung-hoon made Kwon Daegon drunk, but when he gave him the drink, he didn't expect that it was Baek Suzy who drank it. Hearing Lee Seung-hoon's story, Kwon Daegon said that he shouldn't make his own decisions and get other people involved, because he couldn't trust Lee Seung-hoon if it was like this. Lee Seung-hoon apologized because he had no choice but to deceive them this time, but he promised not to let this happen again. Kwon Daegon then helped Park Gyuri up and asked if she was okay. After standing up, an annoyed Park Gyuri kicked the person holding her hostage continuously. Kwon Daegon thinks luckily everything is settled, but Kwon Daegon threatens Lee Seung-hoon. If he does this again, then he will lie there. Finally, they decided to clean up this mess. But before that, No Manho told Park Gyuri to calm down because it looked like her wrist was injured. He advised Park Gyuri to go to the doctor first, and he would take care of her. Coincidentally, he wanted to test the skills of the bat he had just acquired. After they thought about it, they didn't know what they should do with Baek Suzy, because Park Gyuri was injured. Because Kwon Daegon was fine, Lee Seung-hoon asked Kwon Daegon to take Baek Suzy home. Kwon Daegon also carried Baek Suzy and asked where Baek Suzy's home address was. Seeing the princess-style carry, Park Gyuri was surprised and offered to take Baek Suzy with her. Kwon Daegon was worried about Park Gyuri's wrist, but Park Juri said at least not Kwon Daegun. Jung Min and Bang Ho-jung also offered themselves, but Park Juri said that they couldn't either. Because he couldn't be here much longer, Lee Seung-hoon invited Kwon Daegun to leave immediately. On the way, Lee Seung-hoon gave Kwon Daegun his address. He then asked Kwon Daegun if he was okay and told him that he felt bad about all of this. After telling him he was fine, Kwon Daegun told Lee Seung-hoon to just take care of the others as he walked away. At that moment, Jiseok came over to Lee Seung-hoon. When asked why he was here, Jiseok answered that he heard that Baek Suzy was drunk, so he wanted to offer to take her home. But before Jiseok finished his sentence, Lee Seung-hoon told him not to. Kwon Daegun became curious about what they were talking about, but Lee Seung-hoon told him not to worry and invited Jiseok to come with him for a while. He thanked Jiseok for telling him that Baek Suzy was drunk with just one glass, but Park Juri knew Baek Suzy's address, so she didn't need Jiseok anymore and said that she could go. But Jiseok said that he could just take Baek Suzy to her house, because Baek Suzy had bad drinking habits, and she would act violently. However, Lee Seung-hoon told Jiseok to go home and rest, because he didn't feel well. Jiseok was confused about what he meant, even though he didn't feel unwell. Suddenly, Lee Seung-hoon kicked Jiseok. Lee Seung-hoon smiled and said he already told you that he wasn't feeling well. Luckily, Kwon Daegun said he would accompany Baek Suzy, so he told Jiseok to just stay here as a spectator. But Jiseok panicked because when Baek Suzy was drunk, she had a habit of doing jujitsu. If Kwon Daegun went to Baek Suzy's house in conditions like this, Jiseok was sure something bad would happen. Not long after, Baek Suzy slowly regained consciousness. She was then surprised to find that she was being carried by Kwon Daegun. Her face turned red and she asked why she was being carried by Kwon Daegun. At that time, Kwon Daegun thought that he was too conspicuous and that many people were staring at him. When he saw a taxi, he was about to get into the taxi. But Baek Suzy suddenly pretended to be delirious and said that she didn't feel well and she could vomit in the car. Kwon Daegun also asked Baek Suzy if she was awake, but Baek Suzy didn't answer. When asked by the taxi driver, Kwon Daegun apologized for not getting on. Baek Suzy thought that she didn't want to stop being carried. He didn't know if this was a dream or not, but she wanted to stay like this. At that time, Kwon Daegun thought that he had no other choice. He didn't mean to do this, but he decided to use flow. The taxi driver was annoyed because Kwon Daegun didn't take a taxi, but he was surprised when he saw Kwon Daegun running quickly. He became excited and thought that Kwon Daegun was inviting him to race. He intends to show his experience as a taxi driver for 20 years at the age of 57. Not long after, at the hospital, they received a patient who had hit a telephone pole while driving a taxi. They didn't understand why he was speeding, even though he was in a children's area where the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. At that time, Kim Min-soo found Seo Ji-woon's room. He felt like he had heard that name before. In Seo Ji-woon's room, Seo Ji-in spoke to the unconscious Seo Ji-woon and began to tell him about his school life. Kim Min-soo was curious about whether Seo Ji-woon was Seo Ji-in's younger brother. He thought that he shouldn't make his own decisions and wanted to report to director Lee Saim, but he was discovered by Seo Ji-in, which made him nervous. On the other hand, Kwon Daegun finally arrived at Baek Suzy's house. When he entered Baek Suzy's house, someone who was secretly following him took a photo of Kwon Daegun entering while carrying Baek Suzy. After entering the house, when he tried to say hello, Kwon Daegun found no one in the house. He then woke Baek Suzy and told her that they had arrived at her house, but Baek Suzy reasoned that she couldn't walk to bed by herself. Kwon Daegun had no other choice and put Baek Suzy on the bed. After putting Baek Suzy down, he said that he would leave now. He really couldn't believe that Baek Suzy could get drunk like that with just one drink. After saying goodbye, Kwon Daegun suddenly grabbed by his collar and he was crushed by Baek Suzy. Kwon Daegun didn't understand what Baek Suzy was doing, but Baek Suzy said that he had told him that she invited him to play jujitsu, and the loser would be enslaved. Hearing Baek Suzy's invitation, Kwon Daegun answered that he didn't want to play jujitsu or enslave, so he told Baek Suzy to step aside. But Baek Suzy refused and said that this time she wanted to make sure Kwon Daegun knew who was more powerful. Baek Suzy is currently pressing her knee on Kwon Daegun's stomach. That is the knee on belly technique, a technique that places the knee on the opponent's stomach to apply pressure. Baek Suzy also said that the only way for Kwon Daegun to escape from here was to beat her. Kwon Daegun thought that he couldn't hold it in anymore and had to escape from this place as quickly as possible. He also pushed Baek Suzy's knee to get free, but Baek Suzy immediately caught Kwon Daegun and locked his shoulders. Baek Suzy then whispered to Kwon Daegun that it wasn't that easy. If Kwon Daegun pushes his knees and feet, then she will hold the side like this. Kwon Daegun thought that this would be easy, but Baek Suzy's grip was so strong that there was almost no gap at all. Therefore, he decided to be serious. The technique used by Kwon Daegun is called bridge. It is a technique that uses core muscle strength to lift the opponent above and create distance. Core muscle strength plays a very important role. And in the past, Kwon Daegun trained his core muscles for the first time and never neglected it in the slightest, making Kwon Daegun's core muscles far beyond ordinary people. Baek Suzy was surprised by the strength of Kwon Daegun's back. With the next step, the distance widened. Baek Suzy's mistake was that she chose to hug Kwon Daegun tighter, because when he tightened his grip on her neck, his hands might lose control. And when he lost his balance, he did a sweep, namely moving up from a position below him to a position above him. On the other hand, Seo Ji-in was surprised to see Kim Min-soo. Kim Min-soo immediately acted like they met by chance and reasoned that his father had breast cancer. Seo Ji-in was confused by Kim Min-soo, who said he had breast cancer. After being quite far from Seo Ji-in, Kim Min-soo called Lee Saim and reported that Baek Suzy from Class 1, 9, was probably targeting the chairman. Hearing the report, Lee Saim replied that he had a schedule, so he would contact him again. The chairman asked what was wrong and advised Lee Saim to just go home. Lee Saim was a little hesitant to leave, but the chairman said he would meet President Park here today and they could talk tomorrow. President Park said that Lee Saim looked good and asked if he was the one looking after him. The chairman laughed and said that President Park's joke was funny. He said that they had often seen things like that. What they will see now is a completely different world. President Park laughed and said that he got a little nervous when he said that. As he was about to pass by, Park President was stopped and told that this was a construction site, and because it was dangerous, they were restricting access. President Park becomes nervous, but the chairman assures him that this is just a formality and there is no need to be afraid. They were finally allowed to enter. President Park, who was a little scared, asked if it was usually like this. The chairman answered that this was not normal because currently there was business with President Park. He told them that now, President Park no longer needed to bring a lot of money to come to them and asked them to expand his knowledge step by step, because this content only the selected can enjoy. This content is a struggle for true masculinity that fights solely for the sake of victory. Not long after, they found two people fighting. They were stopped by the guards. The man who beat his opponent was angry because the person he beat was an athlete who was going to fight soon, but he didn't care at all. He even said that they should be grateful because there was no point in him fighting if his level was only that much. Chairman Park is confused about what is going on, but the chairman tells him that he is just an overzealous person and that happens often. President Park then asked what the chairman had said before. The chairman answered he was right and told him that it was the athlete's waiting room. President Park became very nervous because he could feel the aura of a wild animal behind the door. He fell and asked if there was really a human inside. At that time, someone helped President Park to stand up. That person then lowered his head and greeted the chairman. When asked by the chairman what his name was, the person introduced himself as Ham-sun Jin. He is a third-grade Grumryong High School student. Ham-sun Jin then asked if the chairman wanted to go to the waiting room, but the chairman said that he had to meet someone first and told Ham-sun Jin to take good care of himself. President Park didn't expect to see a student from the chairman's school, but the chairman said that he had already told him that the athletes who would appear were students from his school. Ham-sun Jin entered the waiting room and greeted Baek Soo-yuk. He then asked why he was clicking the lamp so scary. On the other hand, the chairman came to meet the person he wanted to meet. He was greeted and asked why he was so late. The chairman then asked who the athlete was, but he said he wasn't there and he was hiding it. But if the chairman found out, he was sure the chairman would be very surprised. Back at Kwon Daegun's place, Kwon Daegun is still fighting jujitsu with Baek Suzy. He thought Baek Suzy just talked a lot, but Baek Suzy was much better than he thought. He didn't understand why Baek Suzy was so strong. Dagon then counterattacked, and Suzy was trapped again. He didn't understand because in jiu-jitsu, if you don't know anything, you will be beaten. At that moment, Dagon turned things around and finally managed to catch Suzy. Suzy's hands looked like they were in handcuffs. Suzy said that this was cheating, but Dagon said that he didn't care, and then asked if that was her blanket over her head. Suzy answered that it was true, and asked what was wrong with the blanket while being embarrassed. Suddenly, Dagon wrapped Suzy in the blanket. Dagon sighed, and said that if he didn't do this, there would be no end to it. As he walked away, he said that he would leave now. When he left Suzy's house, Dagon felt so hot that he was sweating. But at that time he was photographed by Kim Samuel, and the photo was sent to Ham Sun-jin. As soon as he received the photo, Ham Sun-jin was shocked. Because he was surprised, he accidentally said Suzy's name. Soo-hyuk also snatched his cell phone from Ham Sun-jin. Ham Sun-jin said that the source was a bit unclear, and he didn't know who the sender was, and neither did the man in the photo, so he didn't know what happened. So he advised Soo-hyuk not to make a decision too quickly, and that he would come back soon. Soo-hyuk also crushed Ham Sun-jin's cell phone and told Ham Sun-jin to find out now. After struggling on the bed, Suzy finally let go of herself, who was wrapped in a blanket. She also discovered that Dagon had left in a hurry. She felt disappointed, but AHE was confused as to why the bed was so messy. The match they had been waiting for, namely Soo-hyuk's fight, was finally about to start. They immediately went to watch it. When arriving at the arena, the referee introduced the fighter who would fight, namely the Hound from Hell, Magma. When he saw the fighter, he was told that Magma was from Daegu. Even so, the skill is very hot, so it's fine. Then, the referee introduced the King of Beasts, Soo-hyuk. Magma spat because he was annoyed that people worshipped him. He was curious as to what the person was like, but he was surprised when a lion entered the arena. He felt this was an exaggeration, but he thought at least he was still an ordinary human. When Soo-hyuk stared at him, the referee understood and told him that he was not his opponent, but the other man. Ham Sun-jin was worried because it could be Suzy's fault that made Soo-hyuk go crazy. But he thought that if he saw that photo, it would be difficult to stay sane, especially for his brother. But he asked Soo-hyuk not to worry, because he, Ham Sun-jin, had been his lackey for 10 years. Before the match, the referee explained that there were a few precautions. Before he could explain, Magma ran towards Soo-hyuk and said he didn't care about things like that. He tried to punch Soo-hyuk, and Soo-hyuk received his punch. Everyone was shocked to see Soo-hyuk hit hard. Magma didn't waste the opportunity and continued to beat Soo-hyuk. The nervous Chairman Park said that it seemed the chairman's condition was not good. They believed that Soo-hyuk was strong, but he was not someone who would just accept attacks. So they believed Soo-hyuk couldn't concentrate on the match. Soo-hyuk also provoked Soo-hyuk, who didn't fight back at all, and continued to beat him. But the last blow made Magma feel strange. He then turned around and asked the referee if he was joking. He also grabbed Soo-hyuk's hair and asked if he was serious about not competing because he didn't come to hit the punching bag. Magma said that he had explored the national competition scene to get here. They say here he can fight until someone dies. Therefore, he believes he must be prepared to kill or be killed in order to be enjoyable. Then suddenly Soo-hyuk attacked back. Magma knelt down and vomited blood in one blow. Magma was very surprised. At that very moment, the chairman said in the ancient Roman Empire, they put lions and men into the Colosseum to fight, in eat or eat, a real game of life or death. So he asked President Park who he thought would win. On the other hand, Magma stood up again and said that he had let his guard down. An excited Magma says that's good, as he doesn't need to hold back anymore and launches his punch. But Soo-hyuk quickly hit Magma's arm hard. Soo-hyuk then immediately hit Magma in the ribs. Magma vomited blood again. When his head was grabbed, Magma asked to wait a moment, but Soo-hyuk ignored him and punched Magma's hand and face at the same time, breaking Magma's finger. To finish him off, Soo-hyuk once again punched Magma in the face. The chairman said, for humans, even a small lion attack is fatal and life-threatening. In the Colosseum, humans and lions do not compete. No one expected humans to win. Watching lions hunting is just for fun. Baek Soo-hyuk approached Magma and asked if he had just asked why he came here. He told him that he had a beautiful and adorable younger sister. For him, he can do anything. He said that he wanted to show it to Magma, but unfortunately the reason Magma came here was to fight to the death. Gladiator drew his sword bravely, but once he faced the lion, he realized he had no choice but to die. Magma begged Baek Soo-hyuk that he didn't have to compete anymore, and he didn't want to continue, but Baek Soo-hyuk ignored him and continued to walk towards him, making Magma scared and screaming for help. He even said that he would return all the money, but Baek Soo-hyuk grabbed Magma's leg and apologized because that was impossible, because the side that knocks out pays more, so he can buy Baek Suzy delicious food. At school, when No Manho and the others looked for Kwon Daegun, they found the students queuing. They found out that they were actually lining up to meet Kwon Daegun. Kwon Daegun sighed and told them to leave because he was studying, but Kim Young-jung asked Kwon Daegun to listen until the end. Not long after, Baek Suzy walked among the others. Kim Young-jung still begs and says even the smallest help is useful. At that moment, Baek Suzy kicked Kim Young-jung hard. She told Kim Young-jung to stop bothering him and left. Jinmo was angry at Kim Young-jung because he should have been kicked by Baek Suzy. Baek Suzy then called Kwon Daegun, but was ignored. She also grabbed Kwon Daegun by the collar. Kwon Daegun sighed and took off his glasses. Baek Suzy was immediately amazed to see him, but she scolded Kwon Daegun about yesterday. Because he was too fierce, the bed was broken. Everyone was shocked to hear that. At that time, Baek Suzy asked Kwon Daegun to take responsibility. Hearing that, Kwon Daegun told Baek Suzy to speak clearly, but Baek Suzy said that she didn't know and just told Kwon Daegun to take responsibility. Apart from that, Baek Suzy also said that the blanket was wet from sweat, so it was difficult to wash. At that time, Hamsun Jin, who was listening, was very angry. He didn't understand why this happened, but he calmed himself down because Baek Suzy was now an adult. He also remembered when Baek Suzy was little. At that time, little Baek Suzy, who saw Hamsun Jin buying ice cream, told him to buy her one too. And when he was late, he was beaten. But Hamsun Jin still thinks the old Baek Suzy was cute. But he thought this wasn't what was important right now, and he couldn't just let it go. Seeing Hamsun Jin leaving, Kwon Daegun became curious because he had never seen him. But Baek Suzy scolded him for changing the topic. Lee Seung-hoon then interrupted and called for their attention. He asked them to take a moment to have a meeting together, except for Baek Suzy. After everyone gathered, Lee Seung-hoon told him that the person was Hamsun Jin from Class 3. So he concluded that Class 3 had started to move. They didn't expect that there would be a third grader acting like a first grader. Lee Seung-hoon explained that thanks to his face, Hamsun Jin does not have a unique presence. He became Baek Soo-hyuk's errand boy, which means he came here to spy on Kwon Daegun. If he made a move, that meant the third graders would probably make a move too. More precisely, Baek Soo-hyuk and his 4 subordinates, who are more often known as the 4 executives. They also think that their nickname is very childish. If there were only 4, Jong-min thought it would definitely be fast. But Lee Seung-hoon warned not to underestimate them just because their names were childish or their numbers were small. Because Gumryong controls the Daejeon area, that means Baek Soo-hyuk and his 4 subordinates control power in the Daejeon area, with just the 5 of them. Those 4 people, compared to the second-year kids or whoever they had fought so far, they were on a different level. At that time, Kwon Daegun asked when the midterm exam would be held. Lee Seung-hoon answered 3 weeks later and asked why he asked. Kwon Daegun answered that he had to study for the midterm exam. He said the exam was important, so no matter how many there were, he told them to come as soon as possible. Lee Seung-hoon didn't expect Kwon Daegun to be serious enough about studying and offered his notes. Kwon Daegun was surprised that Lee Seung-hoon would lend something that valuable and wanted to learn as soon as possible. At that time, Lee Seung-hoon thought that he had sent the photo as an inducement, but he didn't know what they were doing or where they were. So he was curious about what would happen. On the other hand, Hamsun Jin was checking the chat group of 4 executives. He was annoyed because his message was ignored. He wanted to tell Baek Soo-hyuk, but because Baek Soo-hyuk was busy, he decided to take care of this alone. At a tutoring center, the tutoring students have just finished tutoring. Among them was a large man wearing glasses. While he was on his way home, a group of thugs were harassing someone, but noticing the bespectacled man, the thug called him too. Seeing the appearance of the bespectacled man who was like a model student, he laughed at him. But he was surprised when he realized that the man wearing glasses was bigger than he expected. The man with glasses tried to see what was going on. The thug asked what he was looking at but was ignored. He then slaps him and asks if he can't read the situation. But suddenly his hand was caught. He then had his arm twisted and hit in the chest. Another thug who witnessed this asked if the man with the glasses was crazy. The bespectacled man straightened his collar and asked if they were ready to fight. Not long after, the leader of the thugs arrived while embracing a woman. He told them to beat the man with glasses and then leave. They ran towards the man with glasses and attacked him. But the man wearing glasses hit them in the face and elbowed the last thug in the face. The other thug stood up again and attacked the man with glasses again. But he caught his fist and hit him hard. The thug leader realized his subordinates were overwhelmed, so he took out his knife. Seeing the leader take out a knife, the man with glasses said that if you want to use a weapon, only those who are experts can use it. The thug leader tried to slash the man with glasses, but the man with glasses avoided him and caught his hand. He then quickly finished him off. The woman who witnessed it was frightened and threatened the man with glasses that he had been recorded and would be reported. But the man wearing glasses knocked the woman unconscious and took her cell phone. After deleting the video, the man wearing glasses told Ham Sun Jin, who was watching, to remain silent. He then asked why Ham Sun Jin was here, but Ham Sun Jin asked why he was here, and he and the other executives did not reply to messages. The man with glasses is Hanam Bai, one of the 4 executives. He told Ham Sun Jin to mind his own business. An exasperated Ham Sun Jin says he won't get preferential treatment just because he attends school. Ham Sun Jin then said that because the situation was urgent, he would let it go this time. He said there was a new kid who needed to be acted on because he had challenged the second graders. Even when Baek Soo-hyuk wasn't around, he acted like the chairman of Gumryong. So he told Hanam Bae to come to school and teach the first graders a lesson. But Hanam Bae didn't want to. He then said he didn't want to use pencil case on him, so he told Ham Sun Jin to find someone else. Ham Sun Jin was angry and said he would never forget this as he ran. He was annoyed because he thought Hanam Bae would at least understand. 3 of the other 4 executives are all crazy, but with this situation, Ham Sun Jin has no choice to choose someone who likes to go overboard, but whose abilities are solid. In a warehouse, while people were fighting, the cell phone there rang. The owner of the cell phone answered the phone. Hearing what Ham Sun Jin said, he said just give him a list of people and the number of people he had to kill. The man Ham Sun Jin called was one of the 4 executives, An Ha-gon. Chapter 59. In the school cafeteria, Bang Ho-jong, who was hungry, asked which bread he should eat so that he could be the topic of conversation among people. He also jumped into the queue to order 3 sausage patties. A girl was surprised to see Bang Ho-jong jumping into the queue, but was shocked when she heard from her friend that Bang Ho-jong was a first grader. He thought there must be something wrong, but his friend said he didn't think so. In fact, instead of jumping into the queue, the other boys moved aside by themselves. The girl was curious about why Class 3 students were afraid of Class 1 students. Her friend also told her that they were a group of Class 1 students, Kwon Daegun. When talking about Kwon Daegun, he knew that he was a student who was known to be aggressive and unforgiving, and also handsome. They then enthusiastically talked about Kwon Daegun. The male students who witnessed this became irritated with Kwon Daegun, and talked about the incident between Kwon Daegun and Baek Suzy. Ham Sun Jin, who heard this, felt annoyed because even though he had told the others, including An Ha-gon, they were talking nonsense. In Kwon Daegun's class, Lee Seung-hoon told him that he found an important person in Class 3 besides the 4 executives named Chun Shim. Hearing that, Bang Ho-jong and Jong Min were about to mock his name, but were stopped by No Man-ho because he himself was nicknamed No Manners Fighter. When asked what Lee Seung-hoon meant, he answered that he just wanted them to be careful because there was someone like that in Class 3. In Class 3, the boys complained because Class 1 had become quite bold lately. But the girls defended Kwon Daegun. Because there was no Baek Soo-hyuk or 4 executives, They ask the remaining Chun Shim who could help them. Chun Shim replies that she understands and tells them to leave. After they left, Ham Sun Jin came and asked for help about Kwon Daegun from Class 1. Because everyone was talking about Kwon Daegun, Chun Shim became curious about Kwon Daegun. The big man in front of Chun Shim asked if she had finished practicing makeup. When he failed, Chun Shim told him to wash his face. Ham Sun Jin then asked Chun Shim to talk for a moment. Chun Shim says yes, but she's just playing games. Finally he finished and asked Ham Sun Jin if he wanted him to call the 4 executives. He said that he could talk to Baek Soo-hyuk, but Ham Sun Jin said that Baek Soo-hyuk was busy. Having no other choice, Chun Shim decided to give Kwon Daegun a lesson directly. In the cafeteria, Kwon Daegun was listening to a story about Chun Shim, who could move 4 executives while eating. No Manhwa said his wild instincts told him that Chun Shim was a dangerous person. Kwon Daegun felt it was very childish, but suddenly Chun Shim appeared behind him. After confirming he was Kwon Daegun, Chun Shim told him his name and told Kwon Daegun to come with him. Kwon Daegun initially ignored him, but after being scolded, he finally agreed. Seeing Kwon Daegun standing, Chun Shim was surprised to find that Kwon Daegun was very big. Behind the school building, Chun Shim, who thought he was older, scolded Kwon Daegun. But Kwon Daegun, who was actually older, thought of her as a little girl. Annoyed because Kwon Daegun didn't listen to her, Chun Shim was about to hit him, but her fist slowed down and slowly touched Kwon Daegun. He was then satisfied because he had beaten Kwon Daegun. Kwon Daegun was surprised that Chun Shim thought it was a blow. Chun Shim warned that if Kwon Daegun's attitude continued like this, he would die. So he gave advice because he cared about his underclassmen. Seeing Chun Shim, Kwon Daegun felt like he saw a chihuahua. Chun Shim then felt that she had gone too far in reprimanding Kwon Daegun, and said she would stop today. But Kwon Daegun stopped him because he had something to talk about. Chun Shim blushes and says that she is not interested in younger guys. At that time, An Hagen was watching them. Kwon Daegun asked about the 4 executives because he knew they were targeting him. But suddenly someone interrupted them. Kwon Daegun also saw Gu Seong-hwa appear. Gu Seong-hwa said that he had learned from his mistakes in their last fight. Therefore, he concluded that ordinary techniques would not work on Kwon Daegun. So he prepared a technique that was far more destructive than existing techniques. He jumped on his subordinates and they pushed Gu Seong-hwa until he sped off. Gu Seong-hwa then issued a dropkick. Kwon Daegun also got rid of Chun Shim and finished off Gu Seong-hwa in one blow. Seeing Chun Shim in pain, Kwon Daegun apologized and offered to help her up. Baek Suzy said it wasn't her fault, and she was just shocked. Ham Sun Jin, who saw this, immediately ran and asked Chun Shim to go to the hospital. Chun Shim says she is fine, but Ham Sun Jin insists. He then glared at Kwon Daegun, but Kwon Daegun admitted it wasn't his doing. Then Kwon Daegun realized that he was someone in his class. But Ham Sun Jin ran away with Chun Shim. At that time, Gu Seong-hwa was sad because his pro wrestling technique failed and asked what other technique he should use. Kwon Daegun also blamed Gu Seong-hwa that this was all his fault. He also summoned Gu Seong-hwa's subordinates to punish them. An Hagon, who witnessed this, thought he came here just to reprimand the impudent first graders. But he was excited to see the look in Kwon Daegun's eyes. He thought it would be a shame for him to eat such a delicious man just like that. Not long after, a teacher approached him. When he recognized An Hagen's face, he was about to scold him, but he lost consciousness and lost his memory of why he was lying there. When he came home from school, Kwon Daegun was annoyed with Gu Seong-hwa. When punishing Gu Seong-hwa, he wanted to tell something about the 4 executives. But Lee Seong-hoon came and asked if he needed his notes. Kwon Daegun also told Gu Seong-hwa to talk about it later. But Gu Seong-hwa said it was important information, and he would wait for Kwon Daegun. Kwon Daegun didn't expect that Gu Seong-hwa would actually wait until the school bell and even attack him again with a strange technique. While looking in the mirror, Kwon Daegun thought maybe it was time to shave his head. At that moment, he saw someone running towards him and attacking him. Kwon Daegun avoided him and asked what he was doing here. But An Hagen asked who he was. Kwon Daegun also understood that An Hagen had no intention of introducing himself. An Hagen laughed and said he didn't need to care about that. He also threw kicks at Kwon Daegun. Kwon Daegun was curious if his opponent was one of the 4 executives. Seeing his strange clothes, he thought it was hard to tell if he was a student. So if he was a civilian, then he couldn't hurt him. But if he attacked as if he wanted to kill, then he couldn't promise he wouldn't get hurt. On the other hand, Lee Seung-hoon said goodbye to the other students and then found Gu Seung-hwa. He also asked what they were doing because school hours had long ended. He told him that he was serving his sentence, but was not told when he could go home. Lee Seung-hoon realized that it was Kwon Dae-gun's punishment and asked why Gu Seung-hwa was standing up himself. He said standing like this was still his punishment. To change the topic, Lee Seung-hoon asked what he had been talking about with Kwon Dae-gun all that time. Gu Seung-hwa said it was about the 4 executives and asked Lee Seung-hoon what he wanted to hear. Gu Seung-hwa's subordinate really didn't want that to happen because it would add 1 hour and asked him to just leave. Gu Seung-hwa ignored him and started telling the story. The 4 executives in a region are also called the 4 Golden Waters. They come from the same area and are friends with each other. Hearing Gu Seung-hwa start to say that his subordinates were no longer strong and said goodbye to Gu Seung-hwa. Gu Seung-hwa ignored him and continued to tell him that they were so strong that they were known to everyone. But these days, rather than strong, a more suitable word to describe them is cruel. The second strongest person in their previous class, Oh So-dok, played a survival battle game at a construction site. But An Ha-gon came to them and asked who was the strongest. Gu Seung-hwa was about to claim to be the strongest, but Oh So-dok stopped him, and he told him his name. An Ha-gon praised that the name was good and started to stand up. Oh So-dok also said that he didn't care about seniority and invited him to finish it now. Oh So-dok was ready and launched a punch. An Ha-gon dodged it and found his opponent a southpaw. An Ha-gon easily dodged Oh So-dok's attack. Oh So-dok was very annoyed because his opponent was very slippery. Gu Seung-hwa, who watched their fight, was curious about how to dodge An Ha-gon because he had never seen a move like that. He wondered if the soft movement was helping him dodge. Oh So-dok was very angry because An Ha-gon was writhing everywhere. While reading the next move, An Ha-gon caught and locked Oh So-dok's arm. Oh So-dok screamed in pain, and the others were shocked. An Ha-gon laughed at him and asked if his shoulder had just been dislocated. He continuously taunted Oh So-dok, such as telling him to change the name of Oh So-dok's technique. Gu Seung-hwa, who was watching, thought that they should stop it. So when An Ha-gon wanted to continue, Gu Seung-hwa stopped him because if he continued, it could cause serious injury. But An Ha-gon ran towards Oh So-dok and said that was exactly what he wanted. Gu Seung-hwa then tried to stop An Ha-gon, but he was caught by An Ha-gon. When his subordinates wanted to help, An Ha-gon threatened that if they approached, he couldn't guarantee what would happen to Gu Seung-hwa. Seeing Gu Seung-hwa's subordinates who were hesitating, An Ha-gon laughed, calling them stupid, because if it was him, he would still go forward. After that, Gu Seung-hwa was unconscious, and when he woke up, half of them were lying on the ground. It was the first time he felt what it was like to come face to face with one of the 4 executives. Gu Seung-hwa's story is finally finished. Seeing Gu Seung-hwa's pose, he was curious when he got the invisible chair. Out of curiosity, Lee Seung-hoon asked why Gu Seung-hwa, who was obsessed with information, told him this. Gu Seung-hwa also said that when the injury he received almost destroyed him and his friends, he thought it was a very serious situation. But for some reason the next day the pain disappeared. He didn't know what kind of trick An Ha-gon used, so he just wanted to research it. Hearing that story, Lee Seung-hoon thought that he felt like cheering for Kwon Dae-gun. Gu Seung-hwa then wanted to continue his story, but Lee Seung-hoon stopped him. In essence, he said that An Ha-gon was an opponent who would not be easy to beat. On the other hand, Kwon Dae-gun had planted his fist on An Ha-gon's face until he bled. Because An Ha-gon still had not answered his question, Kwon Dae-gun threatened An Ha-gon that he would lose the opportunity to answer. Ham Sun-jin was annoyed when he saw a message from An Ha-gon saying he was fighting outside, because discipline should be given at school so that people can see. But he realized from the photo that the location was near the school, so he quickly ran to the location to stop them. Seeing Ham Sun-jin running, Lee Seung-hoon became curious about where he was running in such a hurry, and ran after him. Gu Seung-hwa also came because he was told to, but he was surprised to see that Ham Sun-jin was fat, but could run fast. Apart from that, the way he runs is also strange. On the other hand, An Hagen thought this was interesting and asked who Kwon Dagon really was. He felt that Kwon Dagon's body, movements and parry were abnormal. So he doubted that Kwon Dagon was a first grader. Kwon Dagon was sure that An Hagen was not questioning the project he was doing. But the world's most famous fighter at 16 looked older than him, so he thought he should be safe too. Kwon Dagon decided to just be careful. Since he's probably a civilian, he'll finish this in one hit. Seeing Kwon Dagon walking carelessly, An Hagen thought he had let his guard down. But in an instant, Kwon Dagon defeated him. Ham Sun-jin finally arrived and was shocked to see An Hagen, who had lost. Even Gu Seong-hwa was surprised to see Kwon Dagon, who had defeated An Hagen, one of the executives. On the other hand, at the game center, Chun Shim is happy because she can finally relieve stress after beating the game. He was a little annoyed with Kwon Dagon earlier, but he thought Kwon Dagon was still a new kid, so he was still a kid. Because he thinks so, he feels proud and thinks he has grown up. On the other hand, he thought Ham Sun-jin's attitude was immature to the point of calling 4 executives to discipline the new student. Returning to Kwon Dagon's side, he discovered that his opponent was one of the 4 executives. When he wanted to wake An Hagen, he was suddenly attacked by An Hagen. However, Kwon Dagon was able to react and throw An Hagen. An Hagen was also impressed with Kwon Dagon. After that, he complained because the medicine he was taking took a long time to take effect. Ham Sun-jin became nervous because he actually took combat stimulant medication. An Hagen said he had no choice but to fight someone he couldn't beat. He thought this was not just a matter of disciplining an impudent first grader. Because Kwon Dagon is not cheap food from the canteen for him, but a dangerous meal. He believes Kwon Dagon is not an ordinary civilian. Hearing that, Ham Sun-jin had no other choice to finish this now, and told Lee Seong-hoon and Gu Seong-hwa to see Kwon Dagon's defeat. He shouted at Kwon Dagon that his history was over. Kwon Dagon thought An Hagen's energy felt different, as if he were in an immersion state, but he felt something was wrong. An Hagen rushed to punch Kwon Dagon, but Kwon Dagon avoided it and responded with an uppercut. An Hagen avoided it with a smile, then caught Kwon Dagon's hand. Kwon Dagon launched a punch to keep An Hagen away, but he dodged and wrapped it around Kwon Dagon's arm. Gu Seong-hwa recognized the move because it was the technique that dislocated Oh Sodok's shoulder. As soon as your opponent throws a punch, wrap your arm around the outside of the attack, hook it, and press down. But An Hagen was surprised to see Kwon Dagon's fist and barely avoided it. He was annoyed because this time it didn't work either. He didn't understand what happened. He believes he previously failed due to a lack of skill in executing. He thought Kwon Dagon's reflexes were much higher, but concluded that was impossible. Gu Seong-hwa asked whether the purpose of wrapping his arms around him was not just aiming for victory, but with the intention of paralyzing the opponent as well. But Lee Seong-hoon was sure it wouldn't work on Kwon Dagon. Ham Sun-jin laughed and called them stupid because they didn't know anything. He tempts them to teach them, but they don't want to. Gu Seong-hwa became angry because he couldn't get any information. Ham Sun-jin believes An Hagen's current abilities have exceeded human limits. This is not something that a first grader cannot understand, and it is absorption, hyperfocus, or metacognitive awareness. He uses the potential of his brain. When that happens, not only the mind, but also physical abilities can exceed their limits, thereby releasing peak human performance. When using hyperfocus and immersion, time slows down, bringing clarity to the surrounding area as if flipping a freeze frame to capture the right moment. An Hagen launched his right hand. Kwon Dagon, who saw that, thought it was slow and avoided it. An Hagen immediately turned his hand and aimed for his neck. When his hand was caught, it immediately wrapped around his arm. He was sure that now Kwon Dagon had been hit, but Kwon Dagon was still able to avoid it, surprising An Hagen. Kwon Dagon tried to attack back, but An Hagen was still able to avoid it. Kwon Dagon got really annoyed and thought he was even more annoying than Gu Seong-hwa. But apart from all that, he noticed that An Hagen's movements had changed drastically. Reflexes, reaction speed, even physical abilities. So he asked An Hagen if he was in an immersion state. Lee Seong-hoon and Gu Seong-hwa did not understand what Kwon Dagon was talking about. But Ham Sun-jin was surprised that the first graders knew about this. But Kwon Dagon thought he felt some kind of sense of dissonance. And he also heard it clearly earlier, when An Hagen said something about medicine. He got a headache thinking about it, but he decided to compare it with the original to find out. Chunshim is very upset about losing the game. He was also scolded by the thugs who were playing, making Chunshim nervous. On the other hand, Gu Xianghua felt that Quan Dagon's atmosphere had changed. At that very moment, Quan Dagon challenged Anhagen to come to him. Anhagen got annoyed and ran towards him. He was about to launch a punch, but Quan Dagon punched him in the face. Anhagen didn't understand what happened and wondered why he was hit even though he didn't see the attack. Ham Sunjin also scolded Anhagen for being hit by a Class 1 kid. Anhagen finally got fed up with Ham Sunjin and thought that he would finish him later after defeating Quan Dagon. But suddenly a kick flew at him. He was able to avoid it, but then Quan Dagon launched his punch. Anhagen became confused because Quan Dagon suddenly became fast, so there was no room to catch him. Then he saw Quan Dagon's kick. He caught him, and thought that he finally caught Quan Dagon. But he was knocked out by Quan Dagon. At that moment, Anhagen felt something strange. Quan Dagon then told Anhagen to do it properly, because there was something he wanted to check. Anhagen swung his leg and launched a punch at Quan Dagon. Quan Dagon avoided it and landed an uppercut on Anhagen. Anhagen kept trying to fight back, but Quan Dagon kept avoiding him and hitting him in the face continuously. Anhagen finally fell down. Ham Sunjin was surprised that Anhagen, who was in the zone, was pushed back. Anhagen was annoyed because this didn't make sense because his fist came out first. But Quan Dagon's punch always reached first. In the hyper-focus zone, you can win against your opponent even in a simple game like rock, paper, scissors by seeing what your opponent does using dynamic visuals. But he who is in the zone cannot even win. Gu Xianghua also thought Quan Dagon would win this fight. Even Li Xionghoon agreed. Quan Dagon has responded to attacks several times. It didn't matter even though Anhagen could read Quan Dagon's movements. An angry Ham Sunjin grabbed Li Xionghoon by the collar and told him to stop pretending to know and asked if he was smart. But after seeing it, Li Xionghoon looked very smart. He then said that life is not based on values. Li Xionghoon was surprised because he never talked about grades. Ham Sunjin told Anhagen's weapon wasn't actually something like a punch. At that time, Anhagen thought he could see the blow. The problem was that as soon as he saw Quan Dagon's fist, he was already hit. But the most important thing is that he can see. Because Quan Dagon's boxing was faster than him, Anhagen decided to let Quan Dagon win the rock, paper, scissor. Then when Quan Dagon launched his punch, Anhagen caught his hand. But Quan Dagon forced him roughly. Quan Dagon was very fed up with Anhagen, who kept sticking to him. Li Xionghoon and Gu Xianghua were surprised by Quan Dagon, who ignored Anhagen's catch and hit him forcefully. Ham Sunjin was surprised to see Anhagen, who was defeated. Quan Dagon told Ham Sunjin to wake Anhagen and take him, because if he was unconscious for too long, he would die. Quan Dagon thought there was nothing else to see and thought that Anhagen was not immersed. Suddenly, Anhagen attacked Quan Dagon from behind and caught him. He said that he was right. If he was unconscious for too long, he would die. Therefore, he will end it. Ham Sunjin also explained that Anhagen has the nickname Anaconda. He wasn't given that nickname just because he was similar to his name. Whoever the opponent is, the anaconda will wrap around them and squeeze them. The more they squirm, the more the anaconda will squeeze, and the victim who is squeezed will not be able to move and will be eaten whole. Anhagen's flexible and muscular body is similar to a giant anaconda. No entangled prey can escape. But Li Xionghoon didn't think so. He had seen it before. An enormous anaconda wrapped around a jaguar. He thought the immobile jaguar would be eaten. However, looking at it from another angle, the anaconda's neck had already been gnawed off. Therefore, Li Xionghoon told him to pay attention clearly. See if the anaconda can protect its head well. Quan Dagon grabbed Anhagen's collarbone and pulled, causing Anhagen pain. In Li Xionghoon's eyes, the anaconda's head had been bitten off. In front of Anhagen, Quan Dagon said he had crossed the line. So he had no choice to cross the line either. Because Quan Dagon tore her collarbone, Gu Xianghua was sure it would cause semi-permanent shock. He thought that if he made a mistake too, he could end up like that. Ham Sunjin couldn't believe this could happen. But Quan Dagon also told Ham Sunjin to immediately bring his friend. At the game center, the thug who scolded Chun Shim for being noisy is being scolded because he is also noisy. His friend intended to stop him, but he was stopped by his friend who knew who his opponent was. The man then said that because Chun Shim was cute, he could bark a little. The thug agreed and asked him to let go. Finally, the man approached Chun Shim, and Chun Shim complained because he was considered like a dog. But the man said he meant Chun Shim was really cute. Then he asked Chun Shim what he should do with them. He asks to just say it, as he can even kill them. The man was one of the 4 executives, Bai Yowul.